Coming up on Free for All Friday, it's crunch time as the legislative voting begins. State Representative Sam Greco reports in from Tallahassee. Also in the studio, Palm Coast Vice Mayor Teresa Pontieri with a funnel full of agenda topics that are defining our city's future and some cringe-worthy leadership issues. Free for All Friday, following the news at 9 and Pierre's Reality Check with my co-host Brian McMillan. On the radio with live streaming on the Flagler Radio YouTube channel and WNZF Facebook page. Hi, this is David Ayers.
This is Alvin Jackson, the city manager for the city of Bunnell. It's that time of year for the State of the City address by Mayor Catherine Robinson. We're going to let you know about all the great things that's happening in our great city of Bunnell. So we invite you to be there in person or watch it live on the WNZF Facebook page and on WNZF Radio. The Bunnell State of the City address, April 28th at 7 p.m.
Hi, I'm Benny Koch from the Public Works Department of the City of Palm Coast, inviting you to join us on Saturday, May 17th, as we present our annual Touch a Truck event outside Central Park in Town Center. You won't want to miss this exciting day with dozens of awesome vehicles to explore, food trucks, activities, and fun for the whole family. Learn more at palmcoast.gov/events, and we'll see you on May 17th.
I work over in water distribution. I oversee the meter, backflow, and service order division, along with my manager that oversees water distribution and construction. We have several dozen employees over in water distribution. We oversee the infrastructure for water mains and water installation for meters. We also read your water meters and do your daily turn on and turn offs. We have a very good relationship within the multiple divisions within utility, whether it be wastewater, water treatment, or water distribution. We work together to make sure that these jobs are done properly. Every job is different, and with that, anything can happen. So when we go out to make a repair or do a job, we make sure that we're prepared for any situation. With water distribution, we are essential. We are here 24/7. If anything were to happen, we come out and make the repairs needed to keep the city running. Currently, we are working on converting manual water meter reads to radio water reads, and with that will help us to track leaks and help customer billing to isolate any incidences or issues they're having with their service. What motivates us as utility employees is the residents. We want to make sure that they are provided clean drinking water, but also that if there's any issues, we're out there to help fix them.
I'm the supervisor of wastewater collections and construction, so PEP, inflow and infiltration, and the construction department. I have 25 employees under me, split up into 3 groups really, like PEP team that goes out, they answer your PEP calls or they install the new PEP services. We have our construction department that goes and they make repairs, new installs, things like that. They fix the roads when the sewer lines are breaking the roads from failure. And then we have the I&I department. They go out, they do our CCTV stuff. They work with construction on utilizing the back trucks and things like that for jetting blockages. Our job is to get the wastewater from you to the plant where they can take care of it from there. So leaks, spills, anything that conveys the wastewater from your home to the plant. One major improvement we made was Florida Park Drive. We had a lot of issues on Florida Park Drive with spills and things with high rain events on Flagler Place. And so our team got together in-house. We laid a 1/4 mile of pipe to divert the flow from a wastewater lift station to another one to bypass that whole system. So that was a huge improvement. A lot of our day-to-day challenges are things like contractors digging and working in the area, hitting our services, and us being very reactive to the problems that we have in the system. Other challenges are just keeping up with the pace of the growth of the city and you know, the general capacity that not necessarily the plants have, but our system itself, making sure that it's capable of flowing. The people that work with me every day, they're good people, they work hard, and I think that they have the best intentions for the city.
This This is Alvin Jackson, the city manager for the city of Bunnell. It's that time of year for the State of the City address by Mayor Catherine Robinson. We're going to let you know about all the great things that's happening in our great city of Bunnell. So we invite you to be there in person or watch it live on the WNZF Facebook page and on WNZF Radio. The Bunnell State of the City address, April 28th at 7 p.m.
I started with ITT in April of 1981 with utility, so this April would be 44 years. Our division basically takes in all the stream flow, the wastewater from the city, some beachside, and we treat it to...
Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance and a short moment of silence. Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Ms. Cook, if you could call the roll, please.
Mayor Norris.
Here.
Vice Mayor Pontieri. Present. Councilmember Gambaro.
Here.
Councilmember Miller.
Here.
Councilmember Sullivan.
Here.
All members are present.
Thank you, ma'am. We're going to move on to item D, discussion, city manager interviews. Doug, if you come forward. Mr. Thomas.
Thank you, Mayor. Appreciate it. Well, I know this has been somewhat of a journey for you all as we've gotten to today's point, but today is obviously a pretty significant day in Palm Coast history and with you as an elected body. I think when I first met with you all, I had mentioned that one of the most important things, if not the most important thing you do as an elected body, is to go through a selection of your city manager under this operation and helping that individual to work with all of you individually and collectively. And so just for the benefit of the audience that may be watching or may be in the audience as well, this process started multiple months ago with me meeting with various individuals to get a sense of what you were looking for in the position, the development of a position profile that was used to market the position. We marketed it. We've gone through a couple different selections to get the semifinalists. All the semifinalists participated in participating in a fairly detailed response to questionnaires and also completing their work on video interviews and various media searches, things of that nature. Went down, narrowed that pool to a smaller pool of finalists, and that pool is now before you in a somewhat smaller pool as well with 2 finalists that are in the process. Today's effort, for the benefit of those that may be watching, is a fairly intensive day for the candidates as well as for the city. It started with 30-minute interviews for each of you on one-on-one to get a chance to meet each of the candidates privately. From there, they've also been involved in the opportunity to meet with your senior staff and a casual lunch opportunity so they could meet the senior staff and vice versa. As we're rotating today's effort, we've scheduled interviews with each of the candidates for 90 minutes today, and while one candidate is interviewing, another candidate is getting a tour, and then they'll flip back and forth as the day goes forward. And then this evening is an opportunity for your citizens to get a chance to meet and mingle with this candidate or these candidates in a meet and greet from 6 o'clock to 8 o'clock. And that's meant to basically give them a chance to engage, and also the candidates get a chance to meet some of your residents and citizens and the issues that may be important to them. I've strived all along to say this is a two-way street. You're interviewing the candidates as much as the candidates are interviewing you. They've tried to figure out if this is a good fit for them personally and professionally and for their respective families. So that being said as a background, the other pieces of information you have now, I've given to the criminal history credit background work has all been completed on both of these candidates. Obviously, there's nothing of a concern there. We typically have reviewed that material, but we wait until if you ultimately select a candidate, we will send that in a password-protected file to your HR department so you can download and have whatever you need for your personnel records. That's got a lot of sensitive Social Security numbers and things of that nature, so we don't share that information publicly. And we've also completed reference checks on both of these candidates. We've provided those through HR. You've either got an electronic or a hard version of those as well. So those are additional material points for you. So at this stage, it really is an opportunity for you as a public body to get to know these candidates and get a determination of their style and their insights and perspectives, and them to get to know you all and the types of issues that you're facing. As you all know, we prepared a list of potential proposed questions that I ask each of you to kind of prioritize. You've responded in that information. I've taken the responses collectively and individually to give you a list of around 20 or 25 questions that are available for your consideration today. My goal is that you would generally ask the same questions to each of the candidates, but that is not to say that there may be a response that a candidate identifies that may need some follow-up, or there may be something in each of these candidates' background that you want to question differently. We certainly understand that. This is really your time to go forward in that direction. If you kind of stay with the standardized questions that you've selected, you're fine. Mike and I will stay in the room if a question is asked that I think potentially might be worded that could be a challenge for you. Just give me the ability to maybe step in and say, let me try to rephrase that to make sure that you don't run yourself into any challenges legally in terms of the process. But I rarely have to do that, but I just give you a heads up if a question comes up that I think we ought to rephrase to prevent any challenges. What we would suggest you do, we're scheduled for 90 minutes, which provides about 60 minutes of a traditional interview. The candidates are also have prepared a very brief no longer than 10-minute PowerPoint presentation on what I've asked them to identify their challenges and opportunities if they're selected for this position. I would ask you, my intent would be is to allow the candidate to make an opening comment or statement, and then I would recommend you allow the candidate to just go directly into the PowerPoint. During that PowerPoint, the intent is it's like a TED Talk. We really want them to complete this in 10 minutes or less. So I would ask you not to ask any questions during the PowerPoint presentation. Certainly at the end of that, I would encourage you, if there's anything the candidate said that you want them to elaborate on or react to it at that point, certainly open your questions. And then from there, I would recommend you just take the questions that you've selected that we've got in your briefing book and just kind of work up and down the dais so that you all get a chance to participate in what that looks and feels like. We're scheduled for 90 minutes. If you don't take the full 90 minutes, so be it. If you're a little bit longer, my goal is to make sure that you spend time. I'll try to keep you generally on track. So at an appropriate time, I may jump in to say we're about an hour into the session, just to make sure everybody knows what's going on. But once again, it's your time with the candidates. I want you to feel comfortable that you've gotten your questions addressed and issued through earlier sessions, through today's session, and then certainly the meet and greet this evening. You're welcome to be part of that process as well. So let me stop there and ask if there's any questions or any concerns on processes or protocols or anything else we can do to make sure you're prepared for your first interview.
Thank you, sir. Any questions from the dais? None. Okay.
Very good.
You're free to go on, Doug.
Well, super. Then I will bring Richard up here, and I know he wants to make an opening statement, and the PowerPoint's all loaded, and we'll go from there. Okay? There you go. Thank you, sir. Come on up, Richard.
Up front, Richard, thank you for being here, and thank you for bringing yourself and your wife here to interview for the city manager position. I really appreciate it.
No, it's my pleasure, and I thank you all for showing up. I hope you come tonight. We can talk. But for now, it's an engagement with the council here. And I want to thank you for this opportunity, Mayor and Council, for being in front of you today and the opportunity to share my first year plan. And with that, if you don't mind, I'll go right into it.
Yes, sir.
All right, so this is a critical transition period that presents meaningful opportunity to align your priorities. Establish trust between me, yourselves, the community, and the staff. And ensure Palm Coast is in a position to thrive and grow through its complexities. What I'll outline today is not simply a list of tasks to perform, but a focused strategy for building momentum, improving performance, and ensuring we rise to meet our responsibilities with clarity and commitment. If I summarize my approach and what I've learned these past 6 years in local government after a career in the service, it is that I am one who challenges the status quo, professionally and tactfully, engaging staff, leaders alike to convert the complacent, why can't we do this, into how can we maybe make this happen? The transitional first year in city management is a chance to set expectations and demonstrate steady, responsive leadership, and I intend to build trust quickly with both the council and our staff through clear communication, disciplined follow-through, and transparency. Establishing this foundation will be essential as we shape our first municipal budget together, one that reflects the council's priorities and addresses community needs and aligns spending with outcomes. I'll also focus on delivering a few early, visible improvements. These will help us build internal momentum while signaling to the public that we are listening and responsive. At the same time, I recognize that I'll be learning the nuances of Palm Coast politics and the organizational culture, navigating different communication styles, responding to competing priorities, and balancing short-term issues with long-term strategies are common early year challenges. But they are also opportunities to lead with discipline and empathy. Infrastructure is the foundational element of most of your plans. We are entering a period of heavy capital investment with projects that include expanding water and wastewater treatment capacity, stormwater resilience, and technology. These investments are necessary not only to meet demand, but to modernize our systems and better serve residents. Our challenge is twofold. We must improve project delivery while navigating increased regulatory expectations, aging infrastructure and deferred maintenance, and compliance mandates requiring urgency and coordination. I intend to launch both an infrastructure coordination team, but I wrote that a week ago and I found out today there's one existing, so that's good, and a citywide asset management framework, establishing an asset management team. These efforts will ensure that projects are scoped properly, sequenced realistically, and completed efficiently. This is not about paperwork or patchwork. This is about long-term resiliency. No infrastructure plan or service delivery strategy will succeed without strong, empowered workforce. That's why one of my first major steps will be to do a full organizational review, identifying where our structure is aligned, and where there is inefficiencies, where we need additional support and or training. We'll also introduce performance scorecards that link department work with citywide priorities. I will engage staff directly through regulatory town hall meetings and department walkthroughs. This type of visible presence, two-way leadership, fosters transparency and uncovers challenges early. Of course, the labor market presents its own headwinds. We will continue to face competition for key talent, particularly in technological fields like utilities, public works, and planning. That's why I'll advance a structured succession planning effort to invest in internal talent development. Retention is not just about pay, it's about culture, purpose, and investment in its people. Palm Coast's economic future depends not only on recruitment, but on readiness. The economic diversification roadmap you've laid out intends to develop readiness. The economic diversification roadmap also develops a guideline of how we position our city for sustainable growth, linking infrastructure readiness, permitting efficiency, and workforce planning with broader economic outcomes. A key component will be strengthen our workforce development roundtable with the community. This group will be more than advisory. It will serve as an action-oriented collaboration between industry, education, and city leadership. The goal is to close the gap between employer needs and available talent, especially in targeted industry sectors that match our growth profile. That said, we must acknowledge our constraints. While our westward areas offer growth potential, many sites are not yet shovel-ready. State policies around incentives and permitting are also evolving, but with preparation, targeted investment, and predictable process management, we can overcome those barriers and compete effectively. In closing, this first-year plan is about delivering the fundamentals: communication, alignment, and performance. While planting the seeds of long-term transformation, it includes targeted actions around infrastructure, organizational readiness, workforce strategy, and economic development. And it is also the underpinning by a commitment to transparency and accountability, not just myself, but the staff. Challenges will come. Growth brings complexity. But I believe this team, this council, and this community are more than ready to take the next step forward. If we work together, we can clearly deliver consistent Palm Coast goals. Palm Coast won't just keep up with growth, we will define it. Let me summarize my highlights in deliverables. Before I arrive, I plan on engaging key stakeholders in the pending budget development process and dive deeper into your strategic plans. On the first 30 days, I'll engage with the mayor and the council to formulate present and draft performance goals, my goals as well as those of subordinates. Identify organizational readiness assessments, that's an early assessment, and conduct department SWOT analysis. At 60 days, develop a deeper staff engagement presence, stakeholder heat map for growth. That's a product to identify key avenues for growth and support budget workshops. By 90 days, budget summary and analysis, expansion of infrastructure capacity assessment that I'll be performing, and form an infrastructure coordination and asset management team. Finally, at the mid-year point, establish a community sentiment dashboard, and initiate a Palm Coast listening initiative for myself, engaging with the community. Analyzing fleet management, succession planning, and existing peer benchmark processes while seeking quick wins. Finally, rounding out the year, analyze the ability to establish a smart city innovation lead, improve transparency initiatives, engage or expand workforce development roundtable efforts, and establish conditions for review and alignment, and this is critical, of the future budgets with your Imagine 2050 plan. I thank you for your time and your trust, and I'm ready to get to work.
Thank you, sir. We'll open it up for questions from the dais. We'll start with District 1.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I just wanted to thank you for coming. I know it's a lot, and travel and all that, so I appreciate that. So the first question is kind of a disclosure question. Do you have any personal relationships with any members of this council prior to this interview process or the job search process?
No, but I hope to get to know you better.
Thank you. The next question I have is in regards to economic development. So what would you consider Palm Coast's single biggest asset in attracting new business and industries? That's 17.
Well, obviously, the greatest asset for any community is its people. Beyond that, though, what you have to do, and I've been saying this in my one-on-ones with you today, is you have to be postured with your pipelines of your people feeding into the industries that you hope to attract. Be they the expansion of your existing industry base, which is the normal economic growth model. For most, 80% of all economic growth comes from expanding your existing capabilities, but as well as posturing for additional capabilities you've roadmapped in your other plans of creating new capabilities. That's going to come from a mixture of growing it through your own internal pipelines and bringing that talent into the area.
Thank you, I appreciate that. Are we bouncing around? Or?
Well, we'll go with what you just did. 2 questions, and we'll just go down the line.
Okay.
Ms. Pontieri.
Good afternoon, sir. Thank you for this morning and for being here this afternoon. For council's reference, I'm asking question number 24. How do you effectively handle having so many bosses who may sometimes have differing goals and agendas?
Yeah, it's lovely when you have one boss, right? But that's not the world we live in here. Many people have many bosses. You got, even if you have one boss at work, you still got, household 6 at home, right? Which is your spouse. And, but that's not an intimidation for me, because what this job is about is fusion of public, staff, and council communication, and making that into a beacon by which you're focusing your attentions. The fact that in Florida we do have the sunshine laws that challenge your all's communication means that I've got to be that conduit for filtering and identifying the trends that are being identified to guide where any change that might be coming from the council itself. I will treat you as individuals. You're going to have differences of opinion, and how to identify those fusion points for initiatives that could turn into action. And I relish that idea because the diversity of the opinions is really what brings interest to such a position. It's one thing to take your guidance from a single individual and say, here's my vision, go for it, right? But it's a whole another to start saying, okay, even in environments where that's the case, yes, say you want to create some kind of new capability, well, why are you not talking to the subordinates and bringing in their perspectives into your decision making in order to make a better decision for yourself? Not everybody's going to get what they want, but if they can respect the process by which you are making the decision, and that's transparent, then they may not like the outcome, but they can respect the process by which it was made.
Thank you. And to piggyback off of that, and this is number 22, do you have a strategy of helping this council get to consensus to get policies across the finish line, even when there are differences of opinion or we don't agree 100% on every initiative or policy that comes to us?
The processes by which I follow and guide how I manage is I try to hold on to the big picture at all times. Spend most of my time holding on to where are we going? Where is this organization headed? But in order to be effective in managing that picture, you've got to be aware of the current environment as well. So if 3 or 4 of you got replaced by someone else and they come in with new direction, and many of you are new, so there might be, that's the dynamic that's playing out here. You have to do a current state assessment. You have to look at the current environment and infuse those new ideas. But at the same time, I'd be working with you 5 to say, where have we said we're going in our strategic documents, that big picture? Let's bring that back to center. If that big picture needs to change, then that's a conversation we need to be having, so that I have clear guidance and direction as to how to turn 600 employees towards that end state. So you're in a constant mode of assessing where is the current environment, but where are we going? And that's a feedback cycle. That's a constant feedback cycle that has to be maintained. You can't just write a plan, put it on the shelf, and then live day to day. That's not how an effective system works.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. District 3?
Yes, Richard, it was nice talking to you this morning, and thanks for being here. And very important job we're looking at filling. So I'm going to start with, in the brochure, the question number 7. Currently, you're the Public Works Director. I want to make sure I've got the title right. Director of Public Works and County Highway Commissioner for Wadsworth County. Number 7 is utilities are going to be really an important part of what's going to happen in the next year and the next few years here in the state. So specifically, please summarize your experience in managing, overseeing utility operations. In reviewing the position profile, a brochure, and the responsibilities of the position, what specific areas do you feel exceptionally strong in, and what aspects of this position will require you to devote more time to master?
Is that one question or 2?
That's one question.
Okay.
But it's basically the utility experience and your experience in that area and actual hands-on things that you've been involved with.
Yeah. So I have built utilities from scratch in a military setting. So having to build a fixed facility in the middle of a desert out of a tent city that needed to be converted into a more fixed structure. So from no utilities to developing out the entire system was a project that I was assigned at one time in my career with the service. And Flash forward a little more near term, I currently manage what Walworth County calls its utility, which it's not. We don't manage wastewater treatment and what have you. We manage the lines themselves that provide our campus, which has a hospital on it as well, and schools and some businesses. The way we're structured is we're considered a utility. We manage the billing of that. We manage the infrastructure, its maintenance, its replacement, pump houses, and those types of things. We do maintain a close relationship with a consortium that's called WalComet, Walworth County Municipal Wastewater and Treatment, and they are accountable to our Public Works Committee. Well, that goes through me as a liaison. I don't run their operations, but we provide them with management guidelines and guidance as to how, because the way we're structured as a community up there is, and I've been saying this a few times a day, Wisconsin is a state of 2 large cities and a bunch of small villages, all right? And so they don't have the capacity at the village level to really do their own thing as large scale as a utility. So that's consolidated and it's accountable to the county, but it has its own director. So I don't personally manage a utility as the Public Works Director at this time, but we do manage infrastructure as it relates to the utilities, because I also control the roadways, as the other title I had as the County Highway Commissioner, and most of those utility main lines are running through the highways, and so we try to coordinate their planning and construction timelines with ours so that we're only tearing up a road maybe once. It doesn't always work out that way, but we try to synchronize those infrastructure improvements with our infrastructure improvements.
Second question is kind of my question. As you know, tourism, for instance, our 18-mile beach, intercoastal waterway, all our canals and boating that we have in the city are critical to economics and other reasons that people want to live their quality of life, so on and so forth. So in that area of tourism, attracting people in, because tourism is important where you are now and here, so some ideas about how you would approach that side of the position you're in supporting that overall effort here in the city.
Well, you heard me say earlier that you need to expand upon your existing strengths, right, for economic development, and that's where a lot of your efforts are channeled, and I think that would have to be continued to be the state. Otherwise, I think anything else would be disruptive to the community itself. I mean, these people moved here for a reason, right? And it's probably for the culture that was Palm Coast. So preserving that culture while introducing some additional capabilities is essential. Currently, where I live, they have a very non-growth strategy. They want things to stay exactly the way they are for the most part. And, it's kind of a playground for a lot of rich and famous that come from Chicago. And so the relationship between the county and the local tourism, we give them about $2 million a year to staff their tourism and marketing efforts. I would imagine you've got something similar going on here. I met your marketing person an hour ago. And so, how are we selling ourselves is something that's very important. Strategic communication and messaging is important. You've got some things that are right going into place here. You've got the public outreach, social media things. You've got a marketing person. Walworth County didn't even have a communications person when I showed up, and when COVID hit, I and one other department head, both of us veterans, were like, you've got to have somebody doing strategic communication, aka marketing as well. And so we were able to convince them. At first it became a half-time job, and then it became a full-time job very quickly because they saw the value in that communication. And somebody needs to be doing that and guiding that and leading that here at Palm Coast.
District 4.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Hough, welcome to Palm Coast. I hope you and your wife enjoy your visit here over the couple of days that you're here.
She's enjoying herself right now.
Okay, great. Great. Well, we do live in paradise. Thank you for your many years of service to our country in uniform. So my first question has to do with ethics. Describe a situation where you worked with someone you did not like or respect. How did you cope with that relationship?
Well, that kind of goes to our conversation earlier. So I worked for a senior commander in the United States Army who was undermining his superior in his daily actions. And it was difficult to watch this because in that organization, orders and command structure mean everything. And this was very blatant action, and the way, you could become a whistleblower or whatever, but in this particular environment, that wouldn't have served very well. So what you do is I still had to respect the chain of command. I took my orders. The whole cycle I talked about, know your environment, and then where are we going as an organization. And that knowing where I'm going with the organization, that vision, is what guided my daily actions. If you don't mind, I'd like to expand that slightly on a story. Sure. I took command of a military organization, and right after you take a job, you go into your office and you settle your affairs. You bring your little I love me box in there and you put your stuff on your desk and what have you, right? So I go into this office and there's not a file in there. There's nothing in there except one file in a drawer, 1.5 inches thick. Everything else is emptied out. I'm like, this is not usual. At least there's usually some kind of files, right? Well, what was in that 1.5 inch file was a bunch of emails about the second in command of the organization, and it was unacted upon by the previous commander, who should have acted upon this, because what it was clear evidence, speaking of ethics and morals, clear evidence that the second in command was traveling to the 7 locations that this command was doing, soliciting quid pro quo relationships. I called my commanding general, who had just given me the guide on command a few hours ago, and I said, did you know about this? He says, no, I don't know anything about it. I said, well, Colonel so-and-so. I said, Colonel so-and-so should have done something about this. He said, what do you want to do about it, Rich? I said, well, I think we need to relieve the second in command and do an investigation, and that happened that very day. And it was a tough decision to let your second in command go, because he's your continuity. For him, it could have been her, he was replaced by a female, was my continuity and my staff lead, the version of a chief of staff around here. So who had to run the organization in that absence? It was me. So all of a sudden I got 2 hats on, and that's why the previous commander didn't take any action, because he didn't want his job to be more difficult. You got to make the difficult right decision versus choosing the wrong. And I try to live by that every day.
Thank you, sir. So for my fellow council members, that was question 11. I'm moving to question 21 under adaptability. The city manager is responsible for juggling numerous projects and initiatives simultaneously. Tell us about how you manage multiple projects and communicating progress updates to the appropriate people and the specific procedures you use to keep everyone abreast of project schedules.
Sure. I'm a big believer in delegation and holding on to that big picture. I'm a big believer in investing in and training subordinates through leader development and specific training, challenging them and giving them more than they think they can handle, but I trust that they can do it. And then I will guide them through the process. I usually will kick off, let's say we're talking economic development, and I bring in the economic development planning team. I'm going to impart with them my specific translation of your guidance to them and give them detailed guidance by which to guide their efforts. Then I'm going to put somebody in charge of that. And I'm going to hold that person responsible for giving me, depends on what the issue is, weekly reports, bi-weekly reports that give me a detailed summary of the actions they're taking. I will attend the first working group, and I'll attend the working groups that they're kicking off when I think it's necessary, or they tell me it's a good time for me to come in, to continue to guide the left and right limits of their actions. So I'm staying abreast of what they're up to, but I'm not the guy churning all the butter, Because if I'm doing the butter churning and I'm making all all those small decisions while not just guiding, I'm losing sight of many other things. This is too complicated of a beast to sit there and dive into a pet project. So you have to hold on to that big picture. You have to defend that, but you also have to build those processes that keep you informed so that you can insert yourself when necessary to continue to guide the staff's actions towards the end goals and milestones.
Thank you, sir.
Richard, thank you. I only have one question, and we discussed this a little bit when we had our interview this morning. Last year we had, our last major storm was Hurricane Milton, and we were inundated with water, rain for weeks before that. So we've had some flooding issues, roads washing out and stuff like that. So my question, and this is my only question to you, what is, throughout your career, both military and civilian, what is your experience in emergency management as far as NIMS, the National Incident Management System, as far as FEMA training and stuff like that? Can you expound on some of your experience in emergency management? Because the reason I ask this question is, you know, we had people in the community saying that was a once in a 100-year storm that we had. That's not true. You and I both know that's not true, that you have to prepare for storms like that every year when you live in a state or country or whatever like ours, and we have those hurricanes coming off the coast. So can you give me just a brief rundown of your experience in emergency management and the National Incident Management System?
I subscribe to a financial newsletter to help me make smart investments, and it's a consortium of individuals that give different advice, but one of them says this all the time: prepare, don't predict. And you just use the word prepare. I have three kind of lines of experience to answer your question. First off, I have managed some disaster response things, from fire response to bridges out to blizzards in Wisconsin that are above and beyond the normal, and then also a tsunami in the Pacific that I was tasked to lead the response efforts to, because it happened to be I had troops that were in the vicinity where this hit, and one of my soldiers was actually swept out by the tsunami. So some hands-on experience with that. Also, I self-trained myself. I signed myself up while I was in the military to conduct, and I've since refreshed this training with FEMA. It's all free. And if your staff isn't using free training from the EMI Institute, which costs nothing, I challenge you to consider doing that. And that said, in 2022, I put my entire staff through this, and we're the only department in the county I work for that has EMI trained people, with the one exception, and that is the Emergency Management Service lead that's in the Sheriff's Department. He helps me set up our department with engaging in local response exercises, tabletop or larger types of events. So why am I doing all that? We had one flood in 2018 that didn't even constitute a level that they thought they needed to stand up their emergency center. And so Public Works just handled it on their own. But I wrote a detailed after-action report after that occurred, and I said, here's all the things that weren't considered by other departments when we were responding to that, even though it's generally in the Public Works realm of dealing with like debris and road clearing and getting roads back up, what have you. But it was much more than that. There was other things to consider, like in the assessment of it, is like, why are these areas flooding? You know, what are we doing in our zoning plans to consider flood mitigation and prevention? So, you know, anybody who's got any kind of training in emergency management knows it's not a response drill, it's a 4-phase drill, you know, from preparation, mitigation to, you know, post-cleanup. So beyond the action itself.
Okay, do you have any of the advanced courses like HC or any of that, any of the advanced certifications?
I'll even go further. I'm actually trained in developing large-scale emergency exercises.
So you've probably been through HC,
I've been through all of it.
all the advanced levels. Okay.
Yeah, and I got that from the military because I used to have a job designing large-scale military exercises.
And some of those classes are only afforded, so often. There's a couple, I think 8 and 4 that are very few people will pay for that certification. I was just wanting to know your level of training in
I
that.
went from 100 series all the way to 800 series.
Okay, and probably HC maybe. It's a great courses. Okay, that's the only question I have, Richard. Any follow-up questions from the dais? Any other questions? We can go down another round if you'd like.
Go ahead, do you want to go?
I mean, you can go if you're ready.
Okay, I'll go. So for reference, this is somewhat question number 18. So I've looked in your resume, sir. It looks like the budget that you have had oversight of, $16 million operating budget and $10 to $30 million in annual capital projects. Palm Coast last year, I believe our budget was $452 million, which is quite a big difference, and that's okay. But my question really is, how would you translate what you've been working with to our budget on a much larger scale in being able to continue to provide a high level of services while also keeping costs for our residents low? Part one of the question. Part two of the question, how would you use the current budget that we have to further advance our local economy?
The current budget you have, advance your economy. I'll come back to that one. Can I ask a question first?
Sure.
What percentage of your $400 million budget is salaries?
That's, on the whole, I'm not sure, because it's really, we've got stormwater, whatever that is, in salaries, administration, so
Here's
total,
my
I'm
point
not
with
sure.
that. Let's say it's 50%, so really you have a $200 million operating budget. I'm managing an operating budget there that's above and beyond salaries, and the departments themselves develop their department budgets to fuse into the larger budget itself. So I'm a part of that process anyways. Also, because I manage all the capital projects, I, unlike my peer department heads, am brought behind closed doors for the development of the final budget, because we're having detailed discussions of how much should go into capital, what capital projects should be expended, and the county administrator makes the ultimate decision as to which ones, but I provide him quite a bit of detail as to the merits of the projects. And in fact, I wrote and developed all the processes by which transformed the capital project for the county, because what it was before was stovepipe submissions right into the finance department, so that every department just kind of fused their own things, and then we walked in and said, here, build this. I'm like, I don't think so. We don't even know if it's estimated correctly, right? So we transformed all that in order to build a validation and merit-based capital planning process. And I'm kind of getting to your second part here with that, but I'll come back to that. The other thing, too, is the largest budget operating I ever dealt with had nothing to do with salaries, and that was $27 million budget, and salaries would have been about a quarter of $250 million. So, but the operating part was what I actually had control over, so salaries exempt. I'm not intimidated by the scale of your budget. It's a matter of managing the priorities, and are they aligned properly inside those department budgets, and are those department budgets just being stovepiped, or are they fused together to find cost efficiencies, to your second point? If this line or this department is doing one thing and competing with the other, we've got to look at our long-term goals and priorities and say where is our racking and stacking of this investment. If economic development and getting into the current environment, saying, hey, I want these capabilities built, and that's in your roadmap and your strategic plans, well, and that's at the top of the prioritization list, that's where the money should be advised by me through the development of that budget to you all as we move forward and put those money into those types of activities.
What do you think is the most important thing that we invest in for the sustainability of our city?
Infrastructure, wastewater and water infrastructure clearly seems to be, from everything I've read in my conversations today, it even came up when I got to the infrastructure slide. only mentioned 3 kind of example projects, and they were all related to your water utilities. So I think that water, and I think, I said this once today, I think Congress messed up. When they started out with ARPA funding, and they've been putting out a lot of money for road improvements lately, they have not been putting enough. They're starting to put some money into bridges, which is good to see, but they did not put enough money, in my opinion, to aging wastewater and water treatment plant infrastructure. And I think that that needs to be a all hands on deck effort where we're working with federal, state, and local officials to improve our funding strategies for that and continue to invest that. It's going to be critical to not only sustaining your existing systems, you got to maintain what you got, right? And I'm a big believer in maintaining what you got, and that has to weigh a certain level before new development. But at the same time, you've got some ambitious growth strategies and plans, and that's going to require utility infrastructure to be built out to get to those aims.
Thank you.
Any further questions from the dais?
I have one. So question number 1, why Palm Coast?
Yeah, I've been asked that a few times today. I'll say there's 4 things that are motivating me, 2 personal, 2 professional. 1, I have always been interested in the executive leadership of a local government entity, be that a county or a city. So that's the background, but the specific locations has come down to the type of community that I want to be in. My wife just turned 50, and I'm in my early 50s, and where do we want to be? We want to be, this is a personal one, my wife is from the South. We just had a grandchild that's in the South, and my sister now has been living in this state for a while, so we obviously have been looking for opportunities down in this vicinity. The type of community I really want to work for is a medium-sized city or a medium-sized county. 50 to 150,000, that's the kind of community that provides the amount of services and the capabilities that we enjoy and that I would love to be a part of as a leader, manager of that organization and that community. And also, you know, we're talking about, okay, lakes, mountains, or ocean. You know, and so Palm Coast hits that one as a personal one. And then lastly, I was looking for a community that is talking about modernization. So when I read your strategies for new kind of economic capabilities, I think I have something to offer there. One of the jobs that I've had in the service was to talk about how to modernize the Army and make it quicker at procuring new kinds of capabilities. And my specific job was, I was titled as a senior fellow, was to fly around the country and go to centers of excellence or innovation, as they might have been calling themselves, for these capabilities, talk to researchers, talk to doctors at universities, talk to industrialists, about how they were producing things that were going out to market. And I see that you have some of your interests aligned with these as well, and I think that we can work together to identify who and how we can approach this, not necessarily to become a center of excellence, that is the center of mass for a particular thing, is say artificial intelligence, but to become, you know, a satellite capability of those areas that feeds into that network. I think you have the potential for that because of you're in close proximity to some universities. You've got 2.5 million citizens in this vicinity, just north or east or west or south of you here, not so much east, and that creates a fusion hub potentially to feed into the spikes of these other communities. So there's potential there. You've got a lot of things going for you, and I think that you can turn some aspirations into a reality.
Thank you. Thank you. Yes, sir. Go right ahead.
I didn't want to let this go by without mentioning public safety and security, because in reality, that still is our number one issue when we start to look at the city, to make sure we have that. In our county and city, we have kind of it's not unique, but we have a single police force, with the exception of a couple of the cities have their own small police force. Basically, it's run out of the sheriff and the county. Whereas on the fire department side, we have a fire department in the county and we have a fire department in the city. I know in the county you came from, you described you don't have a lot of big cities. You have a bunch of little cities. So I do think that's going to be something that you'll have to look at and understand. So maybe compare what you see here versus how it works where you are in your county in Wisconsin.
Sure. And right before I came in here, I was having a great conversation with your fire chief, so got a good ear, kind of a dialogue with him about some of the things that I'm currently involved in. I volunteered with my county to kind of step outside my department's lane to get more involved in many things because I never envisioned myself just being a department head, right? So I've asked to volunteer with many things, housing initiatives, economic development initiatives, but one that I'm currently engaged on is EMT services, as well as emergency management or emergency fire service. So I'm talking to all these local fire chiefs in these 28 communities, but about 16 have their own fire departments of different flavors. Full-time staff versus as much as full volunteer fire departments. So you got a mix there, and the real challenge that's going on currently, and this is nationwide, is the inability to meet EMT and fire response times as laid out by regulations for state or federal. And so we're working towards identifying how to improve that to include as much as potentially consolidating and providing county funding towards not necessarily running their departments, but maybe augmenting training as well as buying some more expensive equipment that maybe some of these smaller communities couldn't afford on their own. So committing to procurement of some of those assets and put them in kind of a shared status, because we have 3 dispatch centers in the county, and one of the larger projects that we're currently managing, we're putting $25 million into a new communications infrastructure throughout the county, more modern capability that gets rid of a lot of gap areas in our line of sight communications towers that we currently have. And so that's a project Public Works is doing in support of these, and then we're fielding all new radios to support that, to include fielding them to the communities that need this new, where we're providing as much as 60% of the costs towards their new radio systems themselves. But we're also studying whether or not to consolidate all the dispatch centers. There's currently one in the city of Whitewater. That's a college town. My son is a police officer in that town. They have their own dispatch center, but it's an economy of scale issue there where they can't really afford it. And then we have Lake Geneva. That's kind of our tourist hub there. They have their own fire and police that are full-time and a dispatch center. But like the same thing, they have some fiscal challenges there that they're reaching out to the county to deal with. So I'm on this committee to look at all of these different issues while addressing particularly EMT's gaps in services, because many of the services are being provided by contract, and those contracts aren't necessarily meeting the service quality that the community expects.
Thank you.
District 4.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Hough, growth is a big issue in our community, right? We hear about it from our residents every meeting. We discuss it up here at the dais just about every meeting. What strategies would you follow to help Palm Coast address its growth management concerns?
Its growth what?
Its growth management concerns based on the research you've been able to do.
Yeah, obviously I've got a lot more research to do, but I put quite a bit of effort into trying to understand your community as best I could, and I think your greatest challenge and to currently is, where do you want to go? Have we really decided that? I started reading a lot of your plans, And I'm a big, I used to write strategic and operations plans, and some plans are purposely designed to go onto a shelf. They're called contingency plans. Pull off the shelf if the contingency comes along. But generally speaking, in a local government, and I say this all the time where I'm currently at, I don't want to write a plan that ends up on a shelf. Your plans are filled with action words of, we're going to do this, we're going to do this, we're going to do this, and we're going to do this. And I'm sitting there asking myself, I stopped reading one of them. It said so many action words in every paragraph. I'm sitting there saying to myself, are you doing these things? So the way I would manage your growth is I need to really get a good center of where are we going as an organization. And that's a conversation we have and the conversation we have as a community. And once that is identified, then I can really start to put the staff towards those efforts and manage it towards your priorities, your prioritization, your sequencing, and not everything sitting there listed in your plans as an action word, because you can't do it all at once. So that was one of the challenges I saw in the existing strategic plans. I think they need to be tightened up a little. Not that I'm saying let's go start rewriting all these plans, but at least defining them better. And I need to get that definition better.
Okay, thank you. I have one more question. Sir, given the recent controversies that have occurred in Palm Coast as early as this week, can you tell us why you remain interested in the position of city manager?
Every community has its challenges. Every organization has its challenges. Real leadership is ones that run to the sound of the guns, as they say in the law enforcement and the military, right? The fact that, you have some ongoing challenges in the current environment is not something that intimidates me and somebody with my background. I did see that you had lost some other candidates, perhaps because of they're a little concerned about their sustainability in that environment. If I'm fair with you and you're fair with me, then that would be something that we can overcome the current environment.
Thank you, sir.
Any further questions from the dais?
I have a follow-up question based on one of your answers, if I may, Mr. Mayor.
Go right ahead.
Thank you. You said that when you're trying to figure out what it is we want and where we're going, you would rely on us as council and staff, and then you reference the community as well, which I find to be very important. When dealing with the community and deciding where it is that they want to go as well, it's my experience that we've got some pretty different ideas from a lot of people in the community. Some very much prefer the small town feel and the fact that this has been a retirement community for quite some time, and really push back against more people coming in and the influx of traffic and all those things. And I think that's a Florida-wide issue. I don't think it's unique to the city of Palm Coast. But then you've got others who say we need to bring in more younger families and a better workforce. How would you balance that in working with this council and staff, balancing those very different type of identities that our community is, this kind of push-pull? What would be your strategy in succeeding in that type of environment?
I've been actively searching for my next position, this level of a position, for a couple of years. And as I've gotten to the final stage a couple of times, I've noted that many of my competition, in my opinion, in my observation, want to be your sixth politician. I'm not going to be the sixth politician. However, what I will be is a voice, particularly because of sunshine laws and the strength of them here in Florida, somebody who's probing the community. Now, we can probe the community by those who wonderfully show up at a meeting like this, and that's encouraging that people show up and want to have their voice heard during public statements. But how are you going out into the communities and getting a diverse opinion? That's the other thing I'm looking for in a community. I want to see diversity. I currently live in a place where 95% of the people are white, all right? And that's neither good nor bad. That's just the way it's been for 150 years. But, you know, diversity in age and in their backgrounds, where they're coming from, you know, a transient population to some degree. You got a lot of different voices there. How am I going to get in there? I'm going to go talk to families in a family setting, in a residential setting, the schools, be engaged, have our staff engaged in the schools. I go to high schools all the time in my current one to talk about, and they come to me, by the way, too. We host these trades kind of discussion. You know, not everyone needs to go get an engineering degree. They can, you know, work in the carpentry or HVAC or what have you. So being engaged in that type of environment, but also that engagement isn't just about building capacity for recruitment for our staff, but, you know, probing them out for what do they want from this community. And sure, there's you know, usually, and this isn't a judgment, you know, a vocal minority that tend to be, you know, retirees of community. I see that in my existing community who show up at our meetings because in the daytime, they're not at night. And so those that are available are getting their voices heard, and our staff needs to get out in that community more often, and that has to be strongly encouraged, not just from myself, but from the staff. It's also, you have an economic development staff, you've got zoning staff. They need to be out there talking to people, and not just a certain isolated group.
Thank you.
Any further questions from the dais?
No, I think we have time.
I think
Okay, Richard,
is that the time?
we got plenty of time left, but on behalf of the city, I'd like to thank you for taking the time. I know it's been a long process, and I really appreciate you bringing yourself and your wife here to conduct this interview, and I wish you all the best in the future. Thank you, sir.
So if I could maybe just add, so we never know exactly how long these interviews are going to take, so we scheduled an hour and a half. If Richard would like to make any closing comments or statements, that's fine.
Well, we'll close out with one, Richard. What's your question? What questions do you have of us? Do you have any questions for us?
Yeah. Got a zillion questions for you. You're a pretty young staff. And I mean that in the sense of how long you've been in your positions. I come from an environment where, because there is no term limits, probably average 20 years in their positions. So you get a lot of complacency. And complacency is a huge thing for me, not just from the staff I manage, but from the organizations I live in. And so the question I have is really two questions there. What is your thoughts on incorporating innovation into your staff via technology? I'll even be more specific, like incorporating artificial intelligence into your staff where it makes sense and where it can be safely employed. And the second part of that would be, and this can be answered separately and by someone separately, do you have concerns with staff complacency and what might be with those might be centered around?
Anyone like to answer those questions?
I'll take a shot at it and then give up the floor. So I think those are both great things to explore. We actually have an efficiency audit that we are going to RFP out for right now. So we should have some answers via an external audit as to where we can get efficiencies. And we've been talking about leveraging technology in those efforts. So I think that we're already pretty aligned with that line of thinking. And to your point regarding complacency, that's never a good thing, particularly with a city that is relatively young. So it's not just us that's young, it's the city is relatively young as well. So I think that we're all kind of aligned with the thought that we need to look for ways to be more efficient, economically specifically, and to ensure that we're operating on all cylinders in an efficient way and using technology to our advantage in that manner.
I'm currently part of a team that's helping develop a white paper for the state of Wisconsin on the incorporation of artificial intelligence into local government. So I was kind of selected that because I do challenge the status quo of an environment, be it technological complacency or staff complacency, process complacency. So that's a big thing with me, but I'm also fair with people, all right? So I understand you can only institute so much change. They can only eat the sandwich so fast, right? So, but if we stay true to that aim point, and I'll be patient to get there. If we said we're going to finish this by 26, but it slipped to 27, hey, we're still making progress. You know, if there's some issues there, then okay, we'll deal with those issues. But if it's, circumstances that are understandable as to why we have some slippage on an ambitious timeline, then we can work through that. Yeah.
Yeah, so I just wanted to comment in terms of technology and those advancements. I view that as just another form of infrastructure, right? Just like we want to invest in our roads and our stormwater, our utilities, et cetera. Technology is another infrastructure that we need to leverage, especially with it evolving in a way that gives it the potential to have a huge ROI in comparison to some of these capital projects. So I'm fully behind investing in technology to kind of increase or leverage more efficiencies in that way. In terms of complacency, 100% agreed. To me, I would say that hiring and leadership development should be based on who the best person is for the job, and sometimes that's a person that has a different perspective from outside. Sometimes it's growing within, so definitely aligned in that in terms of making sure that we're not kind of growing in silos and never have any experience or perspective from the outside.
Just one.
Go right ahead.
I agree that AI and various technologies can help make the system better, but my bottom line on this would be that the solution to complacency is leadership. And I think the technology and all that help, but if you don't have strong leadership and leadership strong enough to inspire the workforce to do their job as best they possibly can, is the key. So on complacency, I would say leadership is the key, but leadership also requires you to have the assets to enable the staff and so on, the employees to do their job. So that's where the part of the technology comes in. So I think that the key on complacency is leadership.
I agree. Yeah, it's just one of the tools in the toolbox there. Yes, sir. Did you have a question?
No, just a response to your question, and that's, I've always been of the belief that if you're not innovating in some way, you're not moving forward. Mm-hmm. So I think we both agree there. And as far as complacency, many of us that served on active duty were moved around every 2 to 3 years, and for part of my life, it felt like it was every 6 months. But it keeps you on your toes. It gives you a different experience, and there's a reason for that. And to Councilman Sullivan's point, if we were to select you to serve as our city manager, that'd be a task that we would certainly ask you to look into, because complacency leads to, in my opinion, not being responsive, potentially to a resident's concern. And so, I look forward to, if you are selected, to seeing how you would step in and help us address that. That's all I have, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. All right, Richard, I think that's going to conclude it. I'll say it again, I appreciate you coming and interviewing with us, and I wish you all the best, and I hope you enjoy our city. A lot of us think it's paradise. A lot of us have been here a long time. Mr. Sullivan has been here forever. And I hope if you're selected that you'll enjoy your time here and you'll have some longevity with the city and help us put us on the right course. So again, thank you, sir.
Right. If you'd like to make a closing comment, and we can
go right
wrap
ahead.
up, and I can talk about where we are in the next process, okay?
Yeah, I appreciate it. I was able to spend what little time I was here. Got here about noon yesterday and just started driving around. Then I got tired of driving around about 6 hours later. But what I really liked was I saw people out walking their dogs, talking to their neighbors, walking your trails. It's almost like every clover of a neighborhood had some kind of buzz and activity going on. And that was regardless of what time of day I went through into that area. You have some wonderful amenities here. You got a wonderful and beautiful community. I'd love to be a part of it. And I'm sure I can make a difference to not just the council, but to the community and to staff leadership, and providing that vision that is necessary to guide them towards your policy goals and objectives. I've managed large organizations. I'm not intimidated by the tasks and the challenges that would come with this position, regardless of its environment currently or in the future. And yes, I do plan on making wherever I land, probably my last community I'll be residing in. And we would love to be here. So thank you for your time.
All right, thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Doug, how long do we have before Paul's here?
We were scheduled for about 30 minutes we didn't know exactly, we scheduled these for 90 minutes. I've texted to try to find out where other candidate is on the tour to see if we might be able to start at 2:30. So my recommendation would be if you could, I haven't got a response yet, but if you might want to just recess and then.
We will adjourn until 2:30 if I have consensus for that. Oh, I'm sorry. We're going to recess until 2:30 and then we'll continue on.
Sure, and I'll let you know what I've heard if there's any change in that
All right,
plan.
we'll all be in the building or nearby. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Hi, this is David Ayers. Coming up on Free for All Friday, it's crunch time as the legislative voting begins. State Representative Sam Greco reports in from Tallahassee. Also in the studio, Palm Coast Vice Mayor Teresa Pontieri with a funnel full of agenda topics that are defining our city's future and some cringe-worthy leadership issues. Free for All Friday, following the news at 9 and Pierre's Reality Check with my co-host Brian McMillan. On the radio with live streaming on the Flagler Radio YouTube channel and WNZF Facebook page.
This is Alvin Jackson, the city manager for the city of Bunnell. It's that time of year for the State of the City address by Mayor Catherine Robinson. We're going to let you know about all the great things that's happening in our great city of Bunnell. So we invite you to be there in person or watch it live on the WNZF Facebook page and on WNZF Radio. The Bunnell State of the City address, April 28th at 7 p.m.
Hi, I'm Benny Koch from the Public Works Department of the City of Palm Coast, inviting you to join us on Saturday, May 17th, as we present our annual Touch a Truck event outside Central Park in Town Center. You won't want to miss this exciting day with dozens of awesome vehicles to explore, food trucks, activities, and fun for the whole family. Learn more at palmcoast.gov/events, and we'll see you on May 17th.
I work over in water distribution. I oversee the meter, backflow, and service order division, along with my manager that oversees water distribution and construction. We have several dozen employees over in water distribution. We oversee the infrastructure for water mains and water installation for meters. We also read your water meters and do your daily turn on and turn offs. We have a very good relationship within the multiple divisions within utility, whether it be wastewater, water treatment, or water distribution. We work together to make sure that these jobs are done properly. Every job is different, and with that, anything can happen. So when we go out to make a repair or do a job, we make sure that we're prepared for any situation. With water distribution, we are essential. We are here 24/7. If anything were to happen, we come out and make the repairs needed to keep the city running. Currently, we are working on converting manual water meter reads to radio water reads, and with that, that'll help us to track leaks and help customer billing to isolate any incidences or issues they're having with their service. What motivates us as utility employees is the residents. We want to make sure that they are provided clean drinking water, but also that if there's any issues, we're out there to help fix them.
I'm the supervisor of wastewater collections and construction, so PEP, inflow and infiltration, and the construction department. I have 25 employees under me, split up into 3 groups really, like PEP team that goes out, they answer your PEP calls or they install the new PEP services. We have our construction department that goes and they make repairs, new installs, things like that. They fix the roads when the sewer lines are breaking the roads from failure. And then we have the I&I department. They go out, they do our CCTV stuff. They work with construction on utilizing the vac trucks and things like that for jetting blockages. Our job is to get the wastewater from you to the plant where they can take care of it from there. So leaks, spills, anything that conveys the wastewater from your home to the plant. One major improvement we made was Florida Park Drive. We had a lot of issues on Florida Park Drive with spills and things with high rain events on Flagler Place. And so our team got together in-house. We laid a 1/4 mile of pipe to divert the flow from a wastewater lift station to another one to bypass that whole system. So that was a huge improvement. A lot of our day-to-day challenges are things like contractors digging and working in the area, hitting our services, and us being very reactive to the problems that we have in the system. Other challenges are just keeping up with the pace of the growth of the city and the general capacity that not necessarily the plants have, but our system itself, making sure that it's capable of flowing. The people that work with me every day, they're good people, they work hard, and I think that they have the best intentions for the city.
This is Alvin Jackson, the city manager for the city of Bunnell. It's that time of year for the State of the City address by Mayor Catherine Robinson. We're going to let you know about all the great things that's happening in our great city of Bunnell. So we invite you to be there in person or watch it live on the WNZF Facebook page and on WNZF Radio. The Bunnell State of the City address, April 28th at 7 p.m.
I started with ITT in April of 1981 with utility, so this April would be 44 years. Our division basically takes in all the stream flow, the wastewater from the city, some beachside, and we treat it to FDP standards. We got compliance that we have to meet, and for the most part we try to reuse the effluent for irrigation and to recharge the aquifer. We do manage the reuse system, which is growing, and we also have an inspection process for restaurants, car washes, for grease. We have to make sure that they're not contributing fog, which is fats, oils, and grease, or any kind of petroleum products from car washes into the system. We do have some key projects that are in motion right now. The biggest is the expansion of wastewater treatment plant 2. That's our AWT Advanced Waste Treatment Plant next to Water Plant 3 on PV grade. We have actually taken on several projects that most utilities would hire out, contract out, switched out 4 big transfer pumps that we did pretty much ourselves. All in all, going from private to the city was probably the best thing that ever happened to the utility.
Hi, this is David Ayers. Coming up on Free for All Friday, it's crunch time as the legislative voting begins. State Representative Sam Greco reports in from Tallahassee. Also in the studio, Palm Coast Vice Mayor Teresa Pontieri with a funnel full of agenda topics that are defining our city's future and some cringe-worthy leadership issues. Free for All Friday, following the news at 9 and Pierre's Reality Check with my co-host Brian McMillan. On the radio with live streaming on the Flagler Radio YouTube channel and WNZF Facebook page. Hi, this is David Ayers.
This is Alvin Jackson, the city manager for the city of Bunnell. It's that time of year for the State of the City address by Mayor Catherine Robinson. We're going to let you know about all the great things that's happening in our great city of Bunnell. So we invite you to be there in person or watch it live on the WNZF Facebook page and on WNZF Radio. The Bunnell State of the City address, April 28th at 7 p.m.
Hi, I'm Benny Koch from the Public Works Department of the City of Palm Coast, inviting you to join us on Saturday, May 17th, as we present our annual Charger Truck event outside Central Park in Town Center. You won't want to miss this exciting day with dozens of awesome vehicles to explore, food trucks, activities, and fun for the whole family. Learn more at palmcoast.gov/events, and we'll see you on May 17th.
I work work over in water distribution. I oversee the meter, backflow, and service order division, along with my manager that oversees water distribution construction. We have several dozen employees over in water distribution. We oversee the infrastructure for water mains and water installation for meters. We also read your water meters and do your daily turn on and turn offs. We have a very good relationship within the multiple divisions within utility, whether it be wastewater, water treatment, or water distribution. We work together to make sure that these jobs are done properly. Every job is different, and with that, anything can happen. So when we go out to make a repair or do a job, we make sure that we are prepared for any situation. With water distribution, we are essential. We are here 24/7. If anything were to happen, we come out and make the repairs needed to keep the city running. Currently, we are working on converting manual water meter reads to radio water reads, and with that will help us to track leaks and help customer billing to isolate any incidences or issues they're having with their service. What motivates us as utility employees is the residents. We want to make sure that they are provided clean drinking water, but also that if there's any issues, we're out there to help fix them.
I'm the supervisor of wastewater collections and construction, so PEP, inflow and infiltration, and the construction department. I have 25 employees under me, split up into 3 groups really, like PEP team that goes out, they answer your PEP calls or they install the new PEP services. We have our construction department that goes and they make repairs, new installs, things like that. They fix the roads when the sewer lines are breaking the roads from failure. And then we have the I&I department. They go out, they do our CCTV stuff. They work with construction on utilizing the back trucks and things like that for jetting blockages. Our job is to get the wastewater from you to the plant where they can take care of it from there. So leaks, spills, anything that conveys the wastewater from your home to the plant. One major improvement we made was Florida Park Drive. We had a lot of issues on Florida Park Drive with spills and things with high rain events on Flagler Place. And so our team got together in-house. We laid a 1/4 mile of pipe to divert the flow from a wastewater lift station to another one to bypass that whole system. So that was a huge improvement. A lot of our day-to-day challenges are things like contractors digging and working in the area, hitting our services, and us being very reactive to the problems that we have in the system. Other challenges are just keeping up with the pace of the growth of the city and you know, the general capacity that not necessarily the plants have, but our system itself, making sure that it's capable of flowing. The people that work with me every day, they're good people, they work hard, and I think that they have the best intentions for the city.
This is Alvin Jackson, the city manager for the city of Bunnell. It's that time of year for the State of the City address by Mayor Catherine Robinson. We're going to let you know about all the great things that's happening in our great city of Bunnell. So we invite you to be there in person or watch it live on the WNZF Facebook page and on WNZF Radio. The Bunnell State of the City address, April 28th at 7 p.m.
I started with ITT in April of 1981 with utility, so this April would be 44 years. Our division basically takes in all the stream flow, the wastewater from the city, some beachside, and we treat it to FDP standards. We got compliance that we have to meet, and for the most part we try to reuse the effluent for irrigation and to recharge the aquifer. We do manage the reuse system, which is growing, and we also have an inspection process for restaurants, car washes, for grease. We have to make sure that they're not contributing fog, which is fats, oils, and grease, or any kind of petroleum products from car washes into the system. We do have some key projects that are in motion right now. The biggest is the expansion of wastewater treatment plant 2. That's our AWT Advanced Waste Treatment Plant next to Water Plant 3 on PV grade. We have actually taken on several projects that most utilities would hire out, contract out, switched out 4 big transfer pumps that we did pretty much ourselves. All in all, going from private to the city was probably the best thing that ever happened to the utility.
The Palm Coast Utility Department proudly provides safe, reliable, and sustainable water services to our growing community. Our mission is to maintain the essential infrastructure that serves as its foundation. Reliable water services are more than just a convenience. They support public health, stimulate economic growth, and ensure a high quality of life for our residents. Our success comes from a dedicated team of highly trained professionals. We prioritize innovation and continuous improvement to meet today's needs while planning for the future of our city. Our department is made up of several key divisions, each playing a vital role. Wastewater collection ensures wastewater is safely transported to our treatment facilities. Wastewater maintenance keeps our infrastructure running smoothly. Water distribution delivers clean, reliable water to every home and business. Water quality monitors and ensures our water meets the highest standards. Wastewater construction expands and upgrades our systems to meet growing demand. Water treatment transforms raw water into safe, clean drinking water. Wastewater treatment processes wastewater to protect our environment, and customer service supports our residents with their utility needs. At the Palm Coast Utility Department, we're not just providing water services, we're supporting our community's growth, health, and sustainability. Thank you for trusting us to deliver these essential services today and into the future.
Hi, this is David Ayers. Coming up on Free for All Friday, it's crunch time as the legislative voting begins. State Representative Sam Greco reports in from Tallahassee. Also in the studio, Palm Coast Vice Mayor Teresa Pontieri with a funnel full of agenda topics that are defining our city's future and some cringe-worthy leadership issues. Free for All Friday, following the news at 9 and Pierre's Reality Check with my co-host Brian McMillan. On the radio with live streaming on the Flagler Radio YouTube channel and WNZF Facebook page. Hi,
This is Alvin Jackson, the city manager for the city of Bunnell. It's that time of year for the State of the City address by Mayor Catherine Robinson. We're going to let you know about all the great things that's happening in our great city of Bunnell. So we invite you to be there in person or watch it live on the WNZF Facebook page and on WNZF Radio. The Bunnell State of the City address, April 28th at 7 p.m.
Hi, I'm Benny Koch from the Public Works Department of the City of Palm Coast, inviting you to join us on Saturday, May 17th, as we present our annual Touch a Truck event outside Central Park in Town Center. You won't want to miss this exciting day with dozens of awesome vehicles to explore, food trucks, activities, and fun for the whole family. Learn more at palmcoast.gov/events, and we'll see you on May 17th.
I work over in water distribution. I oversee the meter, backflow, and service order division, along with my manager that oversees water distribution construction. We have several dozen employees over in water distribution. We oversee the infrastructure for water mains and water installation for meters. We also read your water meters and do your daily turn on and turn offs. We have a very good relationship within the multiple divisions within utility, whether it be wastewater, water treatment, or water distribution. We work together to make sure that these jobs are done properly. Every job is different, and with that, anything can happen. So when we go out to make a repair or do a job, we make sure that we are prepared for any situation. With water distribution, we are essential. We are here 24/7. If anything were to happen, we come out and make the repairs needed to keep the city running. Currently, we are working on converting manual water meter reads to radio water reads, and with that, will help us to track leaks and help customer billing to isolate any incidences or issues they're having with their service. What motivates us as utility employees is the residents. We want to make sure that they are provided clean drinking water, but also that if there's any issues, we're out there to help fix them.
I'm the supervisor of wastewater collections and construction, so PEP, inflow and infiltration, and the construction department. I have 25 employees under me, split up into 3 groups really, like PEP team that goes out, they answer your PEP calls or they install the new PEP services. We have our construction department that goes and they make repairs, new installs, things like that. They fix the roads when the sewer lines are breaking the roads from failure. And then we have the I&I department. They go out, they do our CCTV stuff. They work with construction on utilizing the vac trucks and things like that for jetting blockages. Our job is to get the wastewater from you to the plant where they can take care of it from there. So leaks, spills, anything that conveys the wastewater from your home to the plant. One major improvement we made was Florida Park Drive. We had a lot of issues on Florida Park Drive with spills and things with high rain events on Flagler Place. And so our team got together in-house. We laid a 1/4 mile of pipe to divert the flow from a wastewater lift station to another one to bypass that whole system. So that was a huge improvement. A lot of our day-to-day challenges are things like contractors digging and working in the area, hitting our services, and us being very reactive to the problems that we have in the system. Other challenges are just keeping up with the pace of the growth of the city and you know, the general capacity that not necessarily the plants have, but our system itself, making sure that it's capable of flowing. The people that work with me every day, they're good people, they work hard, and I think that they have the best intentions for the city.
This is Alvin Jackson, the city manager for the city of Bunnell. It's that time of year for the State of the City address by Mayor Catherine Robinson. We're going to let you know about all the great things that's happening in our great city of Bunnell. So we invite you to be there in person.
Palm Coast, and we really appreciate you taking your time to come and interview with us, and we especially appreciate you going through the very long process to get to this point. So with that being said, you can go ahead and do your brief opening statement, and then you can go straight into your PowerPoint.
Okay. Thank you again for the time today. Again, good afternoon, Mr. Mayor, Madam Vice Mayor, and council members, and members of the community this afternoon. Thank you for this opportunity to present on some challenges, though I will outline there are many more opportunities in the city of Palm Coast and a very bright future. Today's presentation outlines key areas for sustainable growth with an emphasis and commitment to collaboration with the City Council, residents, and stakeholders. If you afford me this opportunity as appointed City Manager of Palm Coast, my commitment is to lead with transparency, collaboration, and a focus on sustainable growth to ensure the city remains a premier place to live, work, and play. Okay? So yes, Palm Coast and growth. Yes, Palm Coast has and is currently growing rapidly. I bring experience working in similar-sized community, going through high growth as the city of Greeley, Colorado is expected to double in size in the next 20 to 25 years. Growth at times can bring fear as it is change. Collaboration, transparency, and robust dialogue are critical to growth planning. The opportunity for growth brings the potential to impact demographics in the community. The city's median age is about 50.8, while Florida's median age is about 42.6. The city-county school system ranks in the top 30% in Florida and has an A rating. Schools are a key metric for potential businesses bringing jobs and young families. I often heard while watching numerous council meetings the news and reporting about wastewater challenges in the community, which are very important. Though, in my experience, every city's critical building block is a high-quality education system and affordable, high-quality child care choices. It appears, based on my research to date, you have both in Palm Coast. The education building block is critical to Palm Coast's future. Growth requires seeking out partnership, which are critical to sustainable development At the City of Greeley, we made a focused effort to develop partnerships across local, state, and federal levels. This outreach strategy led to successful shared improvements and $125 million in grants for local infrastructure like stormwater and transportation. Master planning for future development is critical, and most importantly, Palm Coast's westward growth should embrace sustainability, technology, and community as a future city. With this mindset, process improvement within the city team will bring efficiency and remove complacency, resulting in sustainable development through intentional growth. In the City of Greeley, City Council recently approved a $1 billion entertainment district on the west side. We are embracing the opportunity to build a new, what we call a future city, within a city that's 155 years old. An incredible opportunity for us to implement new and improved processes which do not exist today through new technology, seamless infrastructure management, energy use, and utilities, which will attract businesses and residents. Palm Coast's challenge is the cycle of aging infrastructure built around the same time. As a result, delayed capital investments increase cost improvements needed today and exacerbate need for revenue. Operating performance for infrastructure and project management process need collective improvement and coordination. The key opportunity for infrastructure and utilities is a single coordinated project management process and organizational coordination. Often, infrastructure and utilities, capital improvements are managed and constructed separately, creating layered costs within each of the areas. Creating real-time simple dashboards for projects and operations is important to instill trust in City Council and residents. There are 5 important areas across infrastructure and utilities as follows: planning, asset management, operations management, maintenance improvement program, and of course, a capital improvement program. The most important element out of all these areas is the derived investment strategy. For operational and capital improvements, so that investment strategy geared around operational and capital improvements. No matter how much funding you may have, with a poor investment strategy, you typically end up at the same place. EBITDA is a financial tool used to evaluate a company's operating performance and profitability by focusing on earnings from core business operations. For utility funds, this provides a view into the fund for sustainability rather than profitability. The tool can provide clear indications of operational efficiency. Using EBITDA for utility funds uses a common business practice to drive out inefficiency for long-term stability by reducing operating expenses, optimizing processes, energy costs, and balancing aligning the efficiency between maintenance and capital expenses for a greater return. The existing budget for the City of Palm Coast relies heavily on residential value taxes, those being property. There appears to be a limited presence of technology, manufacturing, and industrial businesses, which results in lower commercial activity, resulting in lower sales tax and franchise fees, and is not uncommon for cities experience rapid growth. Nearby communities contend and also compete for similar business investments. Creating an economic development authority would provide opportunities for better coordination and alignment with the County, Florida Economic Development Council, and the U.S. Economic Development Administration. This could provide more opportunities for collaboration, grants, incentives, tax-exempt bonding, and tax refunds for new businesses in targeted sectors. Business growth will diversify the tax base and reduce the reliance on residents for utility funding. The demand for market-ready sites is a driving factor in technology, manufacturing, and industrial businesses. Companies continue to reduce time allowed for making location decisions and time required to start construction. A site certification process would allow Palm Coast to recruit companies with certified sites ready to go. Additionally, this would include community engagement process and an analysis to market the site aligned with potential users and support from surrounding residents. In today's economic climate, companies are not willing to wait for a community to find an appropriate site and determine its suitability for development. We must lean forward to create these opportunities for the city of Palm Coast. The city has an ability to create this program and set the city apart from other communities, creating growth for current businesses and new companies. The challenge for community engagement during periods of rapid growth fuels residents' concerns for cost and quality of life. Additionally, assumed changes can often be shared without a clear question and answer document or an FAQ. The opportunity before the city of Palm Coast is to redefine communication around topics of growth, creating transparency of risks, pros and cons, trying to be consistent in creating easily consumable and timely information on upcoming decisions, which means including the impacts of not deciding. In my experience, the best community engagement happens within the community rather than City Hall. City Council, City Manager, and the City team are key members and have a part to play in creating a quality communication and engagement process. Thank you for allowing me this time to share some thoughts on the City of Palm Coast. I have much to learn about the city and will work hard to seek input and to listen and to understand. Together, we will tackle pressing challenges, capitalize on opportunities for growth and development, to create better outcomes for the city team members and the residents and businesses we serve. The City of Palm Coast future, from my perspective, is very bright. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. We're going to come back to the dais, and the last interview we did like a couple of questions each, and then we had follow-ups down the line. So District 1.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. 1 second while So just wanted to ask you, what do you think is Palm Coast's single biggest asset in attracting new business and industries via economic development?
Again, as I mentioned before, the biggest asset for businesses coming for cities is an educational system. They want to bring jobs in. They're looking to attract employees, and a lot of times those employees are also looking at our school district.
Mr. Trombino, would
Yep.
you just do me a favor and maybe pull that mic, the whole bottom box to
the bottom
you?
box.
Yeah, there you
I'm sorry.
go. That way our
Apologize.
folks listening online can hear you better. There we go.
Okay, I apologize.
And would you repeat that answer? I apologize.
Yep. So to answer Councilmember Miller's question, what do I think is the biggest asset from an economic development perspective, if I have that one correct? I just wanted to restate it. So again, I would say in the research that I've done, the school system is a key ingredient. My experience in cities, having the building block of a school, and especially opportunities for childcare, are key ingredients and attraction for businesses, because that is the key thing that attracts the people that they're recruiting in those businesses. And as I've looked at Palm Coast, that building block is there. And from a past perspective, not having a good school system is a huge hurdle and challenge to get over. And so from my perspective, that leads towards economic development. So the key piece is the school system building block is here, And then the second piece that I would advocate is creating an economic development authority to help drive that potential business development, all types of business sectors, from manufacturing to other things in technology, I think set the Palm Coast up well. The third piece that I would rise is where Palm Coast is positioned. It's on an interstate highway. It has a rail line. It's kind of positioned in between some larger areas, whether it be Orlando or Jacksonville or even south down to Daytona. And that's a place where a lot of times companies want to be. They want to not be in that central core of a larger community. So that's what sets up Palm Coast to be successful. So from a supply chain logistics perspective, we're positioned well. And I'll mention also having an airport is a key ingredient for businesses. They like to, if they have a plant necessarily inside, they want to drive 20 minutes, typically 25 minutes. Being able to fly in from a different area and easily see their facility is a key ingredient. So all of those advantages create tremendous opportunities. Communities a lot of times don't have those.
Thank you. I appreciate that. My second question is kind of a disclosure. Do you have any prior relationship with any members of council?
I do not.
Okay, thank you.
Two, Vice Mayor?
Thank you. Good afternoon. What is your number one strategy in reducing expenses or being fiscally conservative?
So, first thing I would say is I don't know a lot on the fiscal side. I know some based on what I see publicly. I also don't know a lot operationally, right? So that's something I need to take time to learn. So first strategy is really listening and learning. I need to spend a good 60 days really understanding how the city works, how it functions, spending time with the city team, obviously spending time with council to really understand concerns in areas, maybe opportunities in areas. My strategy has always been is to learn from the city team, especially. The solutions typically are there, and usually they just haven't been brought forward. So that's the first thing. So when it comes to reducing expenses, the big thing, and I was trying to emphasize this, a lot of times the big capital expend for cities is utilities and infrastructure, and it's about freeing up. So my strategy has been in not only in the city of Greeley, when I was in Iowa and other places, is to try be more efficient and freeing up dollars to get more things in infrastructure. So it's really what I call the cost of delivery. The cost of delivery is a lot of times where you see layers of costs that you can start to squeeze down that allows you to turn that dollar into infrastructure, which is what we all want to see. We want to see more investments in infrastructure, whether that be in utilities and other things. So operational performance is a key area. It's not an easy thing to say, oh, we're just going to like tick it off and cut some operational performance. This is sort of, you dig in on this, and this is a long-term strategy for us to be more efficient in our delivery of projects, in our delivery of utilities. So really focusing on day-to-day operations is where you'll see, in my view, the biggest bang that will turn into additional infrastructure. I have examples of that in Iowa where we freed up $100 million of funds from really what we were doing in managing our projects that turned into more infrastructure that led to a much more positive result. People saw it, they saw the more investment, and that turned into actually additional funding. So the more efficient we drive efficiency, that likely reduces cost. There's typically then a support. So we're returning that dollar as quickly can into infrastructure. That's the strategy of how I would focus on reducing expenses.
Thank you for that. And my next question is, obviously, in this position, you have 5 different opinions oftentimes that you have to work with and try to get initiatives and policies across the finish line. What is your goal in achieving that?
So, for my goal, I will always say this, from a council's perspective, I'm here to execute policy direction. That's really important for us as a city team. We want to take that policy and we want to turn it into results and what I would call outcome for the community. So that's the first piece. The second piece is having good dialogue. I think it's really important for us. I mean, this will take time. We need to get to know each other. I need to have better understanding of priorities across all of you as a whole on council to make sure I understand where your focus is. And that will lead us to opportunities to have really good communication. There's a rhythm. I would like to say good organizations have a really good rhythm. And that's a rhythm of connection and meeting on a regular basis. So you're always informed where we are. If you have specific priorities, each of you, I should be able to track those and inform you of our status of where we stand and where we're going as a whole. And so there's a format that I like to use to do that as a whole. And that creates a rhythm for us organizationally to stay focused on those items. So that's typically how I've done it in the past, especially for any executive leader. It keeps them informed. They're always aware of status, where we are on tracking that, and how close we are to getting to the finish line, or if we're also having hiccups along the way where we need advice or support from you as a whole to help us work through some issues. That should be a regular communication. That is a weekly sort of communication from my perspective, where we're also tracking those specific items of goals and things that you would like to see in the community.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, ma'am. District 3?
Okay, I wanted to talk on the utility experience and what you've done in that area, but just to set the stage, the city of Greeley has 112,000 people, and you've been the Director of Public Works Department and recently, I guess, promoted to Managing Director, and maybe you could talk a little about what that means, but along the lines of question number 7, which is summarize your experience in managing, overseeing utility operations, and then the rest of that question in reviewing the position, profile, brochure, and responsibilities of position. What specific areas do you feel exceptionally strong in, and what aspects of the position will you require to devote more time to master? But the other thing, you mentioned to me that you've had a lot of experience there. I don't want to force you to bring this out, but you've recently had a significant utility upgrade and plan, and with it some additional costs to the local population. So could you kind of go through that?
Sure. Okay, I'm going to try to hit these as we went through. From an experience perspective, I like to say my experience is in good engineering practice. It's one of the things that I am focused on, process improvement and practice when it comes to engineering. Utilities, all types of things have these components to it. And I've said this before, I said it in my document, have I managed directly a water or a wastewater fund? The answer is no, I have not. We have stormwater in the city. It's a utility fund, just as the other ones. That sits within Public Works. The water and sewer sit differently. But I know good practice, and I understand good engineering practice, good operating practice across all three of those from an experience perspective. And that's why when you think of it as an asset, much less as a life issue, right? It's a quality of life direct issue. It's very important to understand those components. The thing that I would advocate on those is that I often say this, like I'm going to poke fun at engineers because I'm an engineer, is that we like to talk in asset condition, right? And we talk a lot of times very technically. That's not necessary. That doesn't connect it to the economic outcome, right? And so, and that translation is sort of the piece that I've built my career around. It's translating it into the economics and the quality of life of what it means to me as a resident in a city, obviously, but more importantly, how it helps us in the future. So that's sort of I think what separates me a little bit from maybe traditional areas. And then in regards to our current area, as Councilmember just mentioned, we, in stormwater, has been a significant challenge in the city of Greeley. We're, as I mentioned, a community 155 years old, and a lot of times communities of that age were actually, they built in the lowest spot overall in the city. So City Hall actually is in the lowest spot, so it floods directly into City Hall often when we have any sort of significant rain event downtown. And so over the past, I don't know, 20 plus years, we have had experienced flooding across all of the buildings downtown, multiple businesses as a whole. It's been a long-standing issue, I would say at least 15. The stormwater utility rate is probably about 20 years old, so it's relatively what we call a young utility. And so that has been a long-standing issue in the community. We experienced another significant flooding last year, which also, again, had a lot of impact. And we've been working on a lot of studies and other things, but we're really getting to the point of starting to implement improvements within the community. So last year, we had a conversation with council. I brought forward a series of options for them. We sort of layered them out on options. And one of the options was to deal with everything. It turns into, it's about a $520 million investment. It required council to consider and approve a 61% rate increase in 1 year, which now presenting I thought it was important to share the information, right? And for them to consider what that means overall from an impact perspective. And because I think there became a point where council was frustrated, I think, with continued events, flooding events. And so we had a number of meetings with council, very good dialogue and debate over this, but they ended up approving that 61% rate increase. Council member asked me if they had feedback, and they did, right, naturally. You can't, writing a story that says 61% is not great for anybody. And so, but the value of what's about ready to happen, the downtown business owners, the downtown residents, it was super important to them. It became a point where a little bit of a tide turned, and we had an opportunity, and we're actually changing the way we approach this. This is the other thing I would advocate. We're doing what's called a program, so a PMGC, so a program manager, general contractor. So we are going to hit the gas on this. The biggest thing from council's perspective, they were willing to take that step, but they needed to see immediate results. And that's what we're going to drive. And so we've actually been talking to them about this. We're about ready to put out an RFQ to hire a program manager. And I expect that we're going to have $520 million investment in under 5 years. So we are going to hit downtown. It's going to be impactful, but at the same time, they're going to see significant results. That improves the opportunity for growth and development downtown. There's tons of opportunity downtown. But that was an important conversation, I think, for the community as a whole. It's an area of the city that hadn't had investment. It's an old area, old infrastructure, doesn't really have a stormwater system at all. The river passes through it, all these types of things. So that's sort of the conversation we had a little bit this morning. Great project, very difficult conversation, and I'm very thankful for the City Council entertaining the conversation, much less taking action on it. It was a really good, and I think the dialogue was overall really good about the challenges as a whole.
Right, and the other question I had, I'd like to always not forget about public safety and security. And we have a system here where the sheriff, the county sheriff, controls, essentially all the police departments except for a couple of small city, Bunnell and Flagler Beach. But the fire departments are separate. You might talk a little about your experience where you are versus the way it's set up here.
Sure.
And I think it's very important to understand that and make sure that we continue to move forward there with a good system.
Yeah. So I wanted to come back to the last question too you asked, which is the position. So this last year, right. You asked that. I'm sorry about that. So this last year, the city manager created a new position called managing director. The intent of that was really to focus on, so I have not only public works and transportation, as we call it, I also have some things that are coming forward. So all major projects in the entire city CIP. He really wanted to house that. And a lot of times what happens in a capital improvement is you're maybe be focused on long-term projects, 50-year, 100-year impact projects. It could be a development like I mentioned here with West Greeley and Cascadia and the entertainment district. And what happens a lot of times is the CIP can be sort of a little bit of an octopus. It could be going in different directions, so it's hard to align towards that priority. So the intent of that was to try to align those pieces and then take major responsibility for any major project in the city. So that's the position that I ended up sliding into. And then in regards to public safety, in the city of Greeley, we do have a Greeley Police Department and a Greeley Fire Department. Obviously that work directly for the city manager. But I would also say my experience, I've had experience obviously in other states where a lot of times public safety was a partnership, and that's not uncommon for a lot of communities where maybe the sheriff handles a lot of the local law enforcement. There's still a fire, or sometimes even there's a district that around it. So the city of Greeley has a few of those, and we have some districts as a whole too. The key thing that I would advocate is between the city and the county is having a good partnership. For the city, as I was mentioning, we're about 40 square miles. We have a growth boundary of 90 square miles, so it's very large. I just got off a tour. It was the amount of growth opportunity in the city. It was much more than you can see on a map in one of these meetings. So it took me back a little bit, the size of the growth and how far it was, right, from maybe where we are today. That's very similar to the city. And so all of that area in our growth boundary is still in the county. So there's a lot of that area still under county control. So that partnership between the city and the county is really important. It's something we talk about all the time because we'll start annexing pieces of developments. There's roadways, streets, all these types of things. And so whether it is public safety, as council member asked, or both on fire and police, but also in infrastructure. That partnership is really, really important for us as the city grows here in Palm Coast to make sure that we're unfolding the development in a way that provides opportunity and growth. And I also think a little bit, I'll throw this in, as I mentioned, I think there's a great opportunity at partnership with the county at the airport. I strongly believe that an airport authority board would be a great thing between the city and the county. It's what we have in the city. It is actually Greeley-Weld County Airport Authority, and so council members are a part of that. It creates a much better coordination and partnership, and it's actually driven towards economic development. We'll have about $40 million in this rural airport right now, with all types of corporate development coming, and that was because of that partnership between the city and county.
Thank you. District 4.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Trombino, again, welcome to the city of Palm Coast. We hope you enjoy your time here, and thank you for putting your name into the hat for consideration to serve as our city manager.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, I'm going to use my time. I want to confirm some things on your resume, if that's okay, and I'm just going to kind of go through them real quick versus kind of an open question. I saw that you have an engineering degree from the University of Wisconsin, and you do have your professional engineering license in the states of Wisconsin and Colorado. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, and you also have your ICMA, that's International City Manager Association. I'm looking at Doug over here. Is that right? ICMA. That's the county manager.
City county, yeah.
Okay. ASCE is the Association of Civil Engineers.
Yep, that's correct.
And APWA is that Public Works.
American Public Works.
Public Works. Okay.
Yep.
As Chief Executive Officer and Director of the Department of Transportation for the entire state of Iowa, I just want to confirm, it was a Senate confirmed position, so the governor had to nominate you, and you were confirmed twice by the state Senate?
Yes, so the term's it doesn't matter how long, so every 4 years you have to be reconfirmed. So yeah,
Okay.
I did it twice.
And then you were also nominated by President Trump in his first administration to serve as the Director of the Federal Highway Administration, which, by the way, fellow council members, I think that's the position that Derek Bars has been nominated to. So, and your sponsor was Joni Ernst.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, thank you.
Absolutely.
You also in Iowa, so you served as the Director and Homeland Security Advisor. and Chief Operating Officer. Is that under Governor Kim Reynolds?
That's correct, yes.
Okay. And in that job, you led a flood response in 2019 in recovery efforts, and you also coordinated statewide pandemic response during COVID?
That is correct.
So you've got some emergency management chops there. And then you served as the interim, as the Director of Public Works, I guess, at the City of Greeley. You also served as the Interim Director of Economic Development. Is that correct?
Yes, yep, so I served as interim.
Okay, all right. Thank you. I just wanted to confirm resume. I'll
Yep.
come back to other questions.
Absolutely.
In the next
Appreciate
round.
that.
Thank you.
Yep, thank you.
Thank you. The councilman just spoke about it. I was going to ask you about your throughout your career, your certifications in the NIMS, National Incident Management System.
Yes.
Advanced ICM. Do you have all those certifications?
Yes, I haven't done them recently, but that was during Homeland Security and while I was in running Iowa DOT. Subsequently, in the city, I actually implemented an emergency response playbook for not only the city, but it's really focused on public works, but we included all the departments on that.
So you have all the major FEMA
Yes.
certifications. HC, you have that certification?
I don't think I have that one.
That's the Homeland Security Training Exercise Program?
I don't think I have that one.
Yeah, that's a long shot on that one.
Yeah.
No worries.
Okay.
That's the only question I had. Councilman Miller, you have any follow-ups?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I got a couple more here. So I think the first one is why Palm Coast? Why'd you choose us?
So I would say, a couple things. The first being, I was only having an opportunity to serve as city manager. Obviously, is something that I think about in the sense of the career that I've had as a whole. When it came to this position, when I saw it, it was actually in December, and my interests were on two areas. One, I typically have only been tried to, if I moved in a position, I usually like to have family close by, and I have family that's been out here since the early 70s in the Miami area. So that's important from my wife and I's perspective. We always wanted to move somewhere where we feel like we're touching our family. The second piece that I would say is having done the research on Palm Coast, kind of getting to understand it, where it is, sort of the challenges and maybe opportunities within the community. And to really look at it from a perspective, a lot of things I think happening in the community, as I mentioned before, lots of development, rooftops, sometimes creates a lot of concern from community in a lot of ways. So it seemed like a ripe opportunity to really bring, what I think I bring is steady leadership, and in the sense of really growing a team and having the opportunity to form that team. And from the perspective of a one-team approach, as I often say. I've had the opportunity in the city really to come into a community that I like to say was growing, but their processes weren't growing with them, right? So they're sort of a little bit out of balance, and that can happen. And I think as I look at the community today, I got to spend some time with a lot of the department directors, which was pretty fun as a whole. It was a great conversation to hear more of the substance of what's happening and going on, and sort of the work that they're doing, which was great. And it seems even more so to me today that there's just an incredible opportunity and a building block to build on to make Palm Coast an incredible city as a whole. And part of that is, as I mentioned before, I'm really interested in how a city functions in 2040 or 2050, right? I talked a little bit about this with some of the department directors, and thinking about what a new city looks like. Like as you do the westward expansion, would we build that city as it is today? Like in the same way that we would build the city? And I think the answer is no. And to really think about, so growth, especially in the city this size, is where I think most of the growth is overall when you think cities. So if you look at this, and I'm going to sort of get into this a little bit, it'll be fun, hopefully. So is that there's new cities are sort of the interesting piece of what's in the future. There's about 15 to 20 new cities around the globe. A lot of those are in the Middle East and other places. There's some that's starting to come to North America. So the opportunity, and what I was trying to convey, whether I did it well or not, it's a good question, is constructing a new city, which is what the westward expansion is, and doing that from a completely different template, right? To think through how would you change the way we serve that city, or how would it function so that it functions completely better? My belief is, long term, it's the cities that do that, that adapt to that, and think about what that future is from a city. And as an example, as I would like, think of a 3D model of a city, above ground and below ground, where you know where everything is. You can immediately adjust to those things. That's what you're on the cusp of doing. You have that ability to do across all of utility, all of transportation, everything you do day in, day out. That creates a better customer experience as a whole. And I think that is what I heard from the city team. They would love to do. That's the stuff that they're interested in. I think it's why we're all here, is to create this incredible outcome for residents and businesses. So that's what attracted me to the community, is it has incredible bones, as I would like to say, incredible opportunity of growth. And not all communities have that. A lot of cities don't have that as a whole. And so that's what was interesting to me. And I think that lots of conversations, there's always going to be challenges as a whole. But bringing that team together, obviously in conjunction with City Council, I think I have a skill set that I can do that well and create a very successful long-term path for the city.
Thank you for that answer. Can you tell us why you think you're best for this role?
Sure.
That's 25.
Sorry,
just listing the numbers in case anyone's taking notes.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I didn't know that. Sorry. I would say, number one, I'm not coming here and telling you I have tons of city manager experience, okay? I do not, right? So I'm not sugarcoating that. I do bring forward, though, I think, leadership and experience, not only in political environments, but also in all of the areas that a city functions as a whole, that I think is different as a whole. I also think what sets me apart is my experience. I have experience across multiple states. I worked in tons of cities, obviously from a DOT perspective, and I have a good understanding of what the partnerships require, right? So a lot of times cities, whether it's a partnership with DOT or US DOT or the feds and the state, I understand those things, and I understand how to navigate those things well. And so I think that's sort of a little bit of uniqueness to who I am. And I guess the other piece that I would say is I'm always straightforward. I'm always going to give you a straightforward answer. And I think that's what you want, right, from a perspective of potentially serving as a role of city manager. And advice. I would always give you a clear recommendation. It doesn't mean you have to take the recommendation, by the way. And I will adapt to that. And I think the other thing that I probably bring is adaptability. And I have ability to shift and find solutions, what a lot of times you don't see. And I think the final thing that sort of goes with that is I have a strong vision. So I'm and I like pushing a little bit on boundaries and trying to connect things that you don't normally connect, right? And examples of that I think are in my packet about supply chain design in the state of Iowa, connecting the economics of things that I don't think people normally do, right? And so I think that sets that apart, and a lot of it is experience to some degree. And then, I took a path, as I like to say, I took two different paths. I sort of went down an economic side went into the finance, corporate trust, bond administration, and then sort of shifted and went into transportation. A lot of questions from my father when I did that, by the way, probably rightly so. But it turned out okay. They came together in a different way for me, and I think that sets me apart from a skill set as a whole. And then, I think I will do a good job. I'm confident of it. I'm confident I will return and provide an investment strategy, I think, for the city and an outcome that improves the community long term. It'll set the strategy from a long-term perspective. Thank you.
Vice Mayor?
Yes, thank you. Mr. Trombino, in your first 30 days, the objective that you listed was to establish a strong foundation by understanding the city's operations, culture, and community dynamics. You said that you'd be listening, learning, and laying the foundation of productive relationships. So if we look, Council, at question 6, this goes hand in hand with that. How do you facilitate open and transparent communication with the governing body, staff, boards, commissions, residents, and other stakeholders?
Yeah, so thank you for that question. The key thing really comes from is listening. I can't say this enough, I know it sounds easy. And the reason being is that the way I have learned, and there's a few of these examples, some communication training and stuff that I've done years ago that impacted my life. And there's 2 of those pieces. And that is realizing that every single person you meet for a reason, and there's something to learn from them. And my view on communication, especially listening more rather than speaking a lot, is typically my style, is because there's so much value in that, and that takes time and it takes work, right? So from my perspective, I really want to get a sense for the community. How I do that, just as a whole, is walking into places. I've done this a lot in places where I just want to walk in, meet business owners, talk to people on the street. I typically travel around. I mentioned this a little bit earlier. I love my electric bike. I use it all the time. And it allows me to traverse through neighborhoods and see things differently. So what's important for me is to get to sort of touch and feel the city and hear feedback as a whole, and to hear concern, right? It's okay. Like I want to hear ideas, right, too. That's usually what you're really getting as a whole. So that is sort of that foundational piece when I talk about community, is really hearing from them and understanding, which means I can't do it in this building. I actually have to go out and do that a lot. And the strategy I did in Iowa, I took every event that I could take, and I went across the state and met with every single person that was willing to meet with me. And I did that for about 60 days because it took me some time to get across the state. Here, same thing. I want to meet with people, hear from their perspectives. So that's the first thing on the community side, so I'm kind of taking these in reverse. And then coming back to council is, from my perspective, I need to understand your priorities. I need to clearly understand what your focus is in your areas. And I'm going to put those into a format. I use what's called an EOS, Entrepreneurial Operating System by Gino Wickman. It's one of my favorite things to do. It really allows us to stay focused on what those priorities are, and as a team, as a whole. And so, and that means I have to instill trust. I have to earn your trust every single day I walk through this door, which I commit to you I will. And grow that over time. And that means making sure you're aware of what we're doing, where we are, if we're on track or off track a lot of times, and sometimes we get off track. It's important that you hear that directly from us. That instills trust between, ultimately, in this role as city manager, but really, as I would say, the city team and city council, okay? And then in regards to the city team, such a fun conversation today. Very excited about the opportunity to have to work with them. And part of what I've always learned is that the city team it's their career, right? I'm not advocating, like, I want to be a short-term city manager, okay? But city managers come and go, right? Maybe on a different schedule, right? I would prefer. But at the same time, trying to establish a foundation for them that the organization is theirs, right? So my big focus in the organization is really helping the city team be empowered, right? And feel not only responsible, but empowered to make things better, to improve processes, to actually make everybody's engagement better within the organization, make every day as efficient as possible. And there's a couple of processes that I use that I think are really important. The first one, I always like to do this, is communication, right? And so what's your desired communication environment? Something that I've done with multiple organizations. And my experience is it's always the same: open, trusting, positive. That's what they want. And you ask them, what's their undesired environment? It's completely the opposite. Everybody wants this, right? We all have responsibility to do and get there. And there's only one way to do it, is that we are in the desired environment 100% of the time. That's not easy. That's hard, right? And so that's sort of the key message that I would send to the city team, and that brings us together, right, as a whole, and creates a long-term strategy for growth. I want to see the city team grow and develop more and more leaders for the organization over the next 20 to 30 years, and lay a foundation for you and for the city to have really good leadership coming out and growing within the city. So those are how I tackle the three things.
And then my other question is, in your plan, it says for the remaining 6 months, so after the 180-day period, develop a growth management roadmap integrating findings of first year to ensure sustainable development practices. And for the benefit of council, that goes hand in hand with question 19, which is, what strategies would you follow to help Palm Coast address its growth management concerns?
Yeah. So the key thing, I think, for Palm Coast growth is really balance, right? So what's happening, and I say this all the time, a lot of communities get this, tons of rooftops, it sort of starts to get away, and then there's a concern from city residents and businesses and all those other types of things. And so we have to set a strategy early on. Obviously, I think with what's coming up in the development code and other things will really help us set that strategy to balance out funds, right? I think we don't want to, the key thing for the city is we know that there's a track where the revenue that's coming in is starting to balance out, right? It's good for the residents. It's obviously good for the businesses. It's good for all of us. And so from my perspective, that's the Economic Development Authority. And getting that built into, as we think about land development and what's coming forward, that requires a partnership. That requires us sort of digging in, doing site certification. All of those types of things, I think, create more transparency of why this is important, and how it fits to the long-term strategy. And I know that, having watched council meetings, I know there was a lot of challenge with this recently, with a potential fuel a facility coming on, and some debate. And that's exactly what this is directed towards to do, is to start having that conversation early. So we're establishing the types of opportunities that could come to a site, informing the residents, having conversations with them. And I think those are the key things that will really help the city long term.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes.
Yes. Greeley is not a coastal community. Palm Coast and Flagler County not only have 18 miles of ocean beach, but the intercoastal waterway, miles and miles of saltwater canals. It's a two-edged sword. On one side, that's a reason that Palm Coast is attractive for people to come here.
I saw it.
We're in Florida, on the east coast of Florida. But it's also, the other side of that are hurricanes, floods, and various climatic conditions that really do cause an awful lot of the efforts of the government here. We have, significant emergency operations centers, and when those major things hit, they really use up most of your time. So in planning here, I'd say flexibility has to be a big key. It also can affect the budget, your reserves, and everything else. So talk a little bit about what Greeley is like in that area, which I don't think you have. You have, storms and things, but not the same kind of thing, and how you view that and would take it into consideration in doing your planning.
Yeah. So first thing I would say is emergency management it's a muscle you have to exercise. I can't say this enough. I did put that in my plan because it's a question that I have. I just don't know, right? So there's things I just don't know about that. A lot of time, my experience in Greeley, we didn't have an emergency management. It was very, what I'll call soft at best. I think it's substantially changed and improved. We have an OEM. We have started all these pieces now. The exercising that piece is the key ingredient. If you don't exercise it regularly so that you're prepared, it's a key ingredient. And part of what I would advocate is, especially when it comes to infrastructure, stormwater infrastructure, intercoastal, all these other types of things, there are huge advantages for us to manage these events, okay? And as I often say in the city of Greeley, will it still flood when we finish the stormwater system that we're going to do downtown? And the answer is yes, but it should be less impactful, right? And so what we're really trying to do is build a resilient system that maybe feels it, but then it drops away, right? So the cleanup, all of those types of things start to drop away, and life gets back to normal, as we like to say. It's really important in any emergency event. I've been around major floods on both the Missouri River, Mississippi River. I've dealt with ports in Wisconsin. I have tons of experience, I think, in dealing, unfortunately, with very challenging emergency events. I've not experienced a hurricane and managing that directly, but the procedure and process is what I know and how that can function and function well. And then that also relates ultimately to the resiliency in what we build in infrastructure. It's very important for us. This is a big topic nationally, by the way, is it's often, and the processes, both at the federal and state levels do this sometimes, is where the impact comes, right? And then we actually rebuild it exactly as it is, rather than maybe tweaking it just a bit, okay? And that's this resiliency conversation that's happening. It's happening in the transportation world and in other areas nationally. And I actually believe that's a key ingredient for us, is we need to do certain things as storms impact to make sure that the system recovers, and so it's resilient, and its recovery is quick, and there's low impact. We're not going to change maybe the track that we're on, but there's ways for us and tools out there that we can be very effective and change the way and lessen the way the impact happens to the community and gets lives back on. So that would be my key focus. Those are just what I call best practices. I've learned them, unfortunately. In a lot of cases, you learn those the hard way, going through events that don't go well across a couple different states, and you start to figure those out. But those would be the key thing. It's one of the things I really want to understand is how it functions in the city, how it works, what's the practices, how do we engage with the county, all those stuff besides the state as a whole. I just need to get my sense and my fingers on that to some degree. That would be a key thing for me in the first 6 months.
No more.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Trombino, I'm encouraged by the use of the term EBITDA because, those of us that are small business owners live in that world as we try to, build value for our companies. But with that, so this is question number 12 for my colleagues. Can you please describe your experience and skills in capital infrastructure planning, maintenance, and financing? In your response, please highlight any related creative financing strategies you have used to address CIP infrastructure shortfalls, or, for example, utilities. I think you touched on EBITDA as an example for our utilities, and we, like we can all agree that we need to do a better job in finding efficiencies within our utilities. But again, if you could describe your experience and skills in capital infrastructure planning, maintenance, and financing, and highlight any creative financing strategies you've used to address CIP shortfalls.
Sure. Thank you very much for the question. So infrastructure has been sort of a key component of my career, and really the planning and management of large CIPs as a whole, large projects as a whole. I've had lots of opportunity to be part of that in different ways, especially as I got into my engineering career. And so some examples of that, Iowa's program is about $1 billion a year. We have Transportation Commission, so I report to the director, but the commission actually does all of the policy relative to what transportation is. And incredible group, nonpartisan as a whole, and just an incredible opportunity, something I didn't experience in Wisconsin. And the opportunity to sort of work with them and set policy alignment for what they wanted to achieve as a whole is a huge win, as I like to say, for a lot of states. It opened my eyes to some degree. If you think of it in a city council perspective, having a body help set those policy pieces, understand, in this case, the city and community, really helps us on an infrastructure side as we plan out. Because a lot of times, even though we work in the city, we live in the city, we don't necessarily have the same understanding. And so that's, just one example. So as I mentioned before, in the city of Greeley, what's fascinating as the city grows, the challenge with this is the infrastructure costs grow. The projects become larger and harder a lot of times to fund. And so in the city, we tried to set a strategy to really focus on partnerships. And we had partnerships, but we didn't really delve into those partnerships. As I like to say, a city that has Palm Coast side and it's growing needs partnerships. It needs partnerships, obviously, with the county. It needs partnerships with the state. It needs partnerships at the federal level. Those are important because of what's happening in the community and how it's growing. Our connections and opportunities that we have with Interstate 95 and all of those types of things just add to that partnership level and how that creates a better outcome in the community. And so in the city, we really strived hard to really develop those partnerships. We had a long-standing project that's been around since 2014. It was two grade-separated interchanges along US 34 right in the middle of the city. And we sort of tried to approach that coming up with a different way to look at the project, coming up with a different way to really maybe lay out the project as a whole. We ended up getting $50 million in two separate grants for that project from USDOT. In addition, we tried to approach it from the perspective, is there a different way for us to get funding, potentially using debt, right? Never a great conversation, I think, as a whole. In Colorado, because we're a Tabor state, everything has to go to a ballot for that. And we came up with an idea of using TIFIA funds. So Transportation Infrastructure Financing Investment Act is TIFIA, is what it stands for. It was actually passed in 1998, very early in my career, as I like to say. And it was really about, because a lot of infrastructure, if you look globally, there's a finance component to it. There's a lot of times this delta that you can't get to. You can get all the rest of the funding and then you have this little gap that you can't get the project across. And a lot of times what they set up, they were trying to set up infrastructure banks. A lot of states did that over a series of years. And then recently there's been a lot of change. TIFIA is at the federal level through USDOT. So it's very low cost, very inexpensive funding from an interest perspective. And then they have some very unique things about how the payback comes, because you can front load it, back load it, you can change it. So we were really interested in seeing if that could fill the gap for us, because we knew we would have a gap in this project, but it was really a high need. It was really the number one priority from City Council. Been around for they had done a ballot initiative for the project. It didn't happen because they didn't have enough dollars. So we ended up doing a second ballot initiative. It was this last November, and we did it to issue debt. The debt was really intended for low-cost federal funding, and passed overwhelmingly at over 70%, which we were super happy with. Very thankful for residents and council to support that, and that will allow us to take this project to completion. So we've actually kicked off the final pieces of design, and we'll push in. So it's that partnership. As you think about infrastructure, there's always opportunities to find connectivity. And the other thing that I would mention before is the connectivity between the pieces. If we're doing major infrastructure on US 34, which comes right through the city, that impacts water, that impacts sewer, that impacts electricity, it impacts all these things. And really trying to create a better partnership where we're making long-term improvements in that. Affects stormwater for sure. We have a big ditch that goes through it. So all those types of things are critical when it comes to infrastructure management. As I mentioned before, it's understanding their overall connectivity, because there's ways to lower cost in those improvements if we strategize them all together from an investment strategy. So from an experience perspective, I've done that across 2 different states. Obviously, I've done it now in the city level. There's more opportunity for us in the future, especially in the city of Greeley. Tremendous opportunity, and I believe that be the case here also.
Sir, second question, Mr. Mayor. Given the recent controversies that have occurred in Palm Coast, and even as recent as this week, tell us why you remain interested in the position of city manager.
Yeah, thank you for the question. You know, all cities have controversies. I don't know any that don't, to be honest with you. And they go through times like that. And you know, that's sort of coming back to maybe Councilmember Miller's question before. I really see the community as having an incredibly bright future. That's what attracts me to it. Is there some bumpiness that maybe is happening now? Yes, right. I don't shy away from that. You know, some people might call it chaos. I call it opportunity from my perspective. I like that in that sense. I think there's just, especially again, as I mentioned, meeting a lot of the department directors and some folks from the team, told me even more. Like, there's a great team here, and there's tons of opportunity. And are there things to improve? The answer is yes, right? I think absolutely. Improvement is a never-ending process, and so I think there's lots of opportunity here. I would always say I appreciate the dialogue that I've seen with council. I've appreciated what I saw, the conversations in council, and so from my perspective, having the opportunity to be a part of that and work with you, I view as a very good thing. I don't view it any other way, and I think that there's a demonstrated I think passion from the community, as I would say, that I think there's a strong interest in seeing the community continue to be better and improve. Does everybody have an idea of how that is? Yes, I love that. And so seeing the passion in the community and community meetings is a big piece for me. That tells me people want to be engaged. They have advice, as I like to say, and they have ideas. And that's a good place to be.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Paul, if you've watched a lot of the city council meetings, you've probably seen me ask this question before. Give me a situation in your professional career where you were faced with an ethical dilemma, meaning you had to make a choice, you know, a hard right over an easy wrong. So just take a brief moment and think of an experience in your professional career where you had to choose the hard right over the easy wrong. We face ethical dilemmas every day. If you can't think of one professionally, think of one in your private life.
Sure, yeah. So I'll give you one. So I mentioned before, the city did a ballot initiative, right? So when council creates the ballot, right, basically we do it, and it gets set in August for the November, right? So the ballot, and we were doing a ballot initiative for, we have a food tax, and then also this debt. That was what happened last year. And they were kind of paired together. So the food tax was up, so it sunsets every 7 years in the cycle. And so this year, council paired the food tax because the debt that we were going to issue for our project that I just mentioned is going to be paid back with the food tax. So the way they position the food tax and the transportation is the two pieces together. But they also were asking to remove the sunset from the food tax. Fairly controversial, right? Especially in those days over the last year when it comes to food. And what happens then is the city, we take a position where we're not pro or against, right? We have to take this independent position because typically what happens for a lot of communities in Colorado, there's a group that comes forward. It could be a group for or a group against, right? So once the ballot gets published, right, there is a point where we are neutral, right? We have to be neutral under law. And the group that was forming pro called and asked me to, change a process within the department because one of their group entities wanted us to change something that they felt wasn't helping the work that they got, okay? And ethically, I was not going to do that, okay? And I did not. And I conveyed that we were not going to change a process because of the ballot initiative and what this could have impacted them in either a positive or a negative way. And because ethically I did not feel that was correct. And I wouldn't do that as a whole. And so, and I informed our city attorney, our city manager, that I'm not taking this call, I'm not calling this person back because I don't feel that that's ethically the right question to ask during this process.
Thank you, sir.
Yep.
Any follow-up questions from the dais?
I do have one follow-up. Mr. Trombino, your resume is very impressive. I do need to be assured, though, that as city manager, you would be able to kind of take yourself out of more of the technical. You seem like a technician, very much so, which isn't a bad thing. But being able to be a city manager is a very high-level, multitasking, not micromanaging position. How would you be able to kind of take yourself, remove yourself from that technician part of you and truly manage an organization of this size efficiently?
I appreciate the question very much. And I've never been called a technician before, so I kind of like it as a whole. And I'll give you examples. Iowa DOT, right? My job wasn't to do the engineering, right? It wasn't to figure out what the capital, all these details of what projects are, much less determine what type of pavement or what type of steel, those types of things. That wasn't my job. My job was really to lead the organization and to grow the team and do the right things to remove inefficiency or remove barriers that is causing them as a team. And that is my focus, right? I say that every day. Maybe I got too technical today, is now that I look on it. That is not how I function. As I look at public works and transportation, much less being managing director, I'm really looking at fostering the team, ultimately, and growing them and helping provide opportunity for them to be better, right? Creating more empowerment in what they do as a whole, balancing that, obviously, at times between city council and what we do as a whole. So, my job is to lead in general, and I've demonstrated that I think over and over. I don't get into the technical. If they ask, I give an opinion, right? Like anything else. I may have an idea, right? But that's really about it. Overall, my view, and the city manager, actually, my perspective is it builds on my strengths, right? In the sense of communication being one, vision, trying to connect things that maybe we haven't connected, finding opportunities engaging with people, creating good communication and dialogue. Those are the sort of my foundational pieces. As a whole, I do not actually delve into the technical. I say this jokingly, but it's kind of true. I'm sort of a half-baked engineer, I started out in economics. That's how I think. I can't get off of that, so I see things from an economics perspective, how it impacts people's lives, those types of things. I don't see it from a technical side. I can do the technical, but it's not my skill set. So, as all, it's the opposite. It's, I think, leadership, good process improvement. Those are the things that I think overall I help lead really well.
Thank you.
Sure.
Any further questions from the dais? Councilman Miller?
No, I'm good. Thank you.
No. Councilman Stevens? No?
I do have one last question, so we got a couple minutes here. I just happened to think of this. You just recently were essentially promoted, I believe, to managing director, from Director of Public Works. Did you have a system in place in that department where you were developing people to replace you as you moved up? Yes. And did that happen, that somebody that you were fostering kind of and developing? Because I think that's important for management too, developing the force, including people to replace yourself as you move on to other jobs.
Totally agree. Yes. Thank you very much for the question. I would say there's two sides to this I'm going to give you. Over the last 3 years, we've came together. We created an all public works team. In addition, we created an above and beyond work award for public works, team members, people. I'm not a part of that process. Different group, some of our leaders and team members manage that process. We do at the meeting. I actually don't speak at the meeting. I just sort of facilitate, give service awards, some other things. Part of what the meeting really is intended to do is to show what everybody's doing. In the public works team, we're not all in the same place, unfortunately. We're sort of spread around the city in different areas. And getting them all together, because we have transit, we have fleet, we have facilities similar to what you see here, we have engineering, all those types of things. And what they do is, which is super fun, is the divisions within public works each share a process improvement or project that they're working on. We've had facilities team share some of what they're doing to help make the facilities better every day and make it healthier for everybody. It is the most fun, one of the most fun meetings that we do for me personally, because I get to see them embraced. A lot of times our team members don't want to present to their colleagues and 200 people in a room, but they do. And it's a wonderful experience to see them grab on. They're owning their process, they're improving their process, and they demonstrate that at these annual meetings, and it's just been a phenomenal experience from my perspective. So that, to me, is the building that foundation of them owning and getting better and improving that. The meetings have been so fun as a whole. And so yes, do I believe that we have built a core leadership team that has changed public works as a whole and transportation? Absolutely. I feel confident in that. Do we have leadership that has developed across all of our areas that are ready to grow and take on more responsibility? The answer is yes. We have not filled the public work. We're about ready to advertise that position as a whole, and then a couple of other ones that will provide. And I expect that those opportunities will come from people within that are currently in that process. I don't control all of that, so, but I expect that's where it's going to come from. So.
Or you have any further questions?
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Okay, Paul, we're going to allow you a closing statement and any questions you have of us. If you want to close out with asking us any questions.
I don't. I just want to say the first off is I appreciate the opportunity to be here. I appreciate the dialogue that I had with each of you today. It's great to physically be in this room. As I was mentioning before, sometimes on the screen it looks darker than it is brighter in here. So I was happy to see the light in the room. And so, I'd say this, from a closing perspective, I feel privileged to stand here before you, that I made it to this point, to be honest with you. And so I'm grateful for that. I'm grateful for the opportunity to have the dialogue with, obviously, all of you, obviously, the residents to some degree, and tonight, and most importantly, the team, the city team. I got to meet a lot of them as we maneuvered around the building today. The tour was great as a whole, short, but great. And so I am taken by what I think is an incredible city who has a very bright future. So from my perspective on the closing, I think, as I mentioned, I think I'll do a good job. I actually think I'll do a great job. And I think I bring skill sets that you don't normally see across a lot of different areas. And I will lead the team very effectively as a whole and focused on a one-team perspective. It's very important to me for them to feel valued and a part of the decisions that we make as a whole, including decisions with you. So I think from my perspective, I just can't say I've learned so much today, and I feel even so much better about the opportunity. The final thing that I would say is I respect your decision, right? You have a big decision to make, and I totally understand that. And I would always advocate you're going to make the right decision for the city, whether I'm included in it or not. Like, I think that you're going to make a great decision for the city long term, and whatever that is, I totally respect that. And I just really thank you for your time and your candidness in the conversations that we've had today. So, thank you.
Okay, thank you, sir. And on behalf of the entire city, I would like to thank you for making it through the process and coming and visit our paradise. Yeah. And I wish you and your family the best of luck in the future. And anyone else have any closing remarks?
Thank you, Mr. Trombino. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Paul. And the next step is 6 p.m., the meet and greet of the candidates by the public, right, Doug?
That is correct, Mr. Mayor. This concluded the public aspect for the interviews, and this evening, the reception, I believe, is scheduled here.
Yes, sir.
Encourage you certainly to be here to engage with your constituents as they get a chance to meet and mingle with the candidates. I normally encourage, once a reasonable sized crowd is here, to do an official welcome, recognize the various elected officials that are in attendance. If you would like to turn that over to me, I'm more than glad to make a public statement about how we got to this point. And then I've asked each of the candidates to be prepared to do a very brief kind of high-level introduction, and we'll let them kind of scatter in the room, and the crowd will get a chance to meet and mingle, and encourage you to be part of that process this evening.
Okay, thank you, sir. I don't think, Vice Mayor, can you handle that? Because I've got something I got to be at this evening.
I absolutely can, yes.
All right, the Vice Mayor is going to handle that. But thank you, Doug. I really appreciate it, and I think you brought us these are two quality candidates, and we're going to have a tough decision to make as far as the path forward. But I appreciate your time and your effort, and I greatly appreciate them coming and trying to be part of our city.
Absolutely, thank you. And just, I guess, to close, for those who may be watching, it's my understanding, no decision will be made today. Obviously, you still have another process. I believe the mayor and the council have set up a meeting for next Tuesday, I believe at 6:30. Looking for a nod of an affirmation of that.
Yes, sir.
6 p.m., I think.
6 p.m. Thank you. I appreciate the confirmation on that, in which case I assume we'll have a chance to deliberate. I'll participate remotely on that and help you facilitate any of that conversation, and we'll take it from there.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you, Doug.
Mr. Thomas. And with that, we're going to adjourn.
Move to adjourn.
Hi, this is David Ayers. Coming up on Free for All Friday, it's crunch time as the legislative voting begins. State Representative Sam Greco reports in from Tallahassee. Also in the studio, Palm Coast Vice Mayor Teresa Pontieri with a funnel full of agenda topics that are defining our city's future and some cringe-worthy leadership issues. Free for All Friday, following the news at 9 and Pierre's Reality Check with my co-host Brian McMillan. On the radio with live streaming on the Flagler Radio YouTube channel and WNZF Facebook page.